Welcome, brave souls, to tonight's journey through America's chilling past. I'm your name, and this is my channel. Tonight, we cross state lines and century lines, tracing whispers in the shadows, echoes in empty rooms, and lights in lonely woods. These are 25 of the eeriest ghost sightings in American history. Stories to make your skin crawl, your heart race, and maybe, just maybe, make you leave the lights on. So settle in, dim the lights, and beware what watches from where you cannot see. In the quiet farmlands of Adams, Tennessee, the story of the bell which has become something more than local legend. It's a haunting that refuses to fade, a tale of terror whispered across generations. Between 1817 and 1821, the Bell family endured one of the most disturbing and well-documented hauntings in American history. What began as faint scratching soon escalated into violence, whispers, and manifestations that defied explanation. John Bell, a respected farmer, lived peacefully with his wife Lucy and their children on a patch of fertile land. One evening, as he walked the fields, he saw something strange among the trees, a creature with the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. When he fired his gun, the figure vanished. That night, the scratching began. At first, it sounded like rats gnawing at the wooden walls. The family searched every corner of the house, but found nothing. Then came the knocks, 3 at a time, always deliberate, always as if answering. Within weeks, invisible hands began tugging at bed covers, pulling hair, and pinching the children as they slept. The family's youngest daughter, Betsy, seemed to draw most of the spirit's fury. Her screams filled the house nightly as unseen fingers slapped her face and yanked her hair. Voices joined the chaos. First faint whispers, then a woman's laugh, clear and mocking. The presence called itself Kate. Kate's voice grew stronger with time, speaking in full sentences, mocking John Bell, reciting scripture and singing hymns. Visitors claimed to hear her too, speaking from thin air as if she hovered just beyond the candlelight. She predicted events, repeated conversations that had happened miles away, and seemed to know the private thoughts of anyone who entered the home. No prayer, no blessing, no amount of faith seemed to drive her away. Neighbors came to witness the strange occurrences. Word spread quickly, drawing curiosity seekers, skeptics, and ministers alike. Some left terrified, while others swore they'd been touched or heard their names called by something unseen. Even Andrew Jackson, future president of the United States, was said to have visited. His wagon reportedly stopped cold on the road to the Bell farm, as if held by invisible hands. Jackson, uneasy, supposedly remarked, "By the eternal boys, that must be the Bell Witch." The haunting's intensity grew year by year. Furniture slid across rooms. Dishes shattered midair. Doors opened and slammed without cause. Voices, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, echoed through empty halls. Betsy's health declined. She fainted often, her cheeks marked by invisible blows. Kate taunted her, declaring she would never marry her childhood sweetheart. Under pressure, Betsy eventually broke off the engagement, claiming she could no longer bear the torment. But the greatest hatred was reserved for John Bell himself. Kate's voice called him Old Jack, cursing him, promising to end his life. His health deteriorated mysteriously. He lost control of his limbs, suffered from seizures, and grew weaker each day. In December 1820, John Bell fell into a coma. A strange vial of liquid was found by his bed. No one knew how it got there. When a drop was given to the family cat, the animal died instantly. Kate's voice rang out from the shadows. "I gave Old Jack a big dose of that last night. He'll never wake again." John Bell died the next morning. During his funeral, mourners claimed to hear mocking laughter and singing coming from nowhere. The witch's voice allegedly celebrated, shouting triumphantly that her mission was complete. After his death, the disturbances began to fade, though never entirely. The Bell Witch promised to return in 7 years, and according to family records, she did, whispering faintly in the home for several weeks before vanishing once again. Yet her story didn't end there. On the Bell property lies a limestone cave near the Red River, a dark, echoing hollow that locals call the Bell Witch Cave. Many who enter describe a suffocating heaviness, a feeling of being watched. Some claim to hear faint voices, a woman whispering in the dark, or stones thrown by unseen hands. Cameras fail, batteries drain, and cold spots move as if alive. Even in daylight, the cave feels wrong, quiet, yet full of breath. Historians debate what truly happened on that Tennessee farm. Some say it was mass hysteria, others trickery, or the result of trauma and superstition. But too many witnesses swore they saw the impossible. Too many voices recounted the same chilling details. The story persisted because those who told it were changed by what they'd experienced. To this day, the Bell Witch remains one of the most enduring supernatural legends in America. Travelers still visit Adams, hoping to glimpse something, anything, that might explain it. Locals avoid the cave after sunset, unwilling to tempt fate. And some nights, when the wind howls across the Red River Valley, they say you can still hear her. Kate's cruel laughter drifting between the trees, echoing from the hollow where shadows move without light. Rising from the mist and cold waters of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz Island stands as both a monument to human endurance and a relic of punishment. Once the most feared federal prison in America, the Rock confined the nation's most dangerous criminals, bank robbers, killers, and escape artists who believe themselves untouchable. But behind its steel bars and concrete walls lingered something more than despair. Even now, decades after its closure, visitors claim that Alcatraz remains alive with echoes of its past. Doors that slam on their own, phantom footsteps in empty corridors, and whispers that carry through the night. The prison's isolation was its greatest weapon, surrounded by frigid, unforgiving waters and relentless currents. Escape was thought impossible. Yet, those who lived there often said that the real prison wasn't the island, it was what it did to the mind. The long, echoing hallways, the damp chill that never left the air, the silence between cell checks, all of it ate at the men's sanity. The most feared section of all was D Block, known as the Hole. These solitary confinement cells were dark, airless, and stripped of all comfort. Prisoners who were sent there described the sensation of being buried alive. Tour guides and visitors who walk through D Block today often report a sudden drop in temperature. The air feels heavier, dense with invisible weight. Some have described hearing breathing close to their ears or a low whisper that calls their name. Cell 14D is particularly notorious. Many who step inside say the darkness feels alive, so thick it clings to the skin. Years ago, a former inmate claimed that a ghostly figure with glowing eyes tormented him in that cell. The next morning, guards found him dead, his face frozen in terror. To this day, people standing near 14D often claim to see a flicker of movement in the corner of their vision, like someone pacing just beyond the bars. As the wind howls through broken windows and rusted doors, it's easy to imagine the lives that once filled these spaces. The echo of boots against the metal catwalks, the clank of meal trays, the distant thud of a door closing. Some visitors hear these sounds when no one else is around. Others have caught faint whispers in the audio recordings taken during tours. Unintelligible at first, but unmistakably human. A few even claim to hear men calling each other by name, names that appear in the old prison registers long after their owners have died. In the main cell blocks, shadows move when the lights are steady. Guards who once patrolled the island reported seeing figures in old uniforms crossing corridors or standing watch over empty cells. One story tells of a former guard who, years after retirement, swore he saw a group of men in vintage prison garb silently walking the exercise yard, only to vanish as he approached. He recognized one of them, a convict who had died in a failed escape attempt decades earlier. The island's chapel and hospital wing also carry their share of ghostly tales. In the infirmary, the scent of antiseptic lingers, though no medicine has been stored there for years. Tourists sometimes report the metallic smell of blood or hear the rolling of gurney wheels in the distance. The chapel, once a place of repentance, now hums with low vibrations, as if the prayers of the damned still hang in the air. Some who visit late in the evening describe faint singing or murmured prayers, fading as soon as they're heard. At night, the fog thickens around the island, swallowing its outline from the city skyline. The sea laps against the rocks, and the sound of the wind resembles the moan of something restless. Rangers who have stayed overnight tell of doors slamming in the corridors, footsteps that stop just behind them, and cold spots that shift from room to room. The control room lights have flickered on without power, and the old alarm bells occasionally ring, though the wiring has long been disconnected. Perhaps the most chilling accounts come from those who've walked the exercise yard after dark. The faint crunch of gravel under unseen feet. A figure pacing the edge of the wall, disappearing when approached. Some even claim to feel eyes watching from the guard towers, where no guards have stood in decades. The energy there is strange, still, yet full of memory. The walls seem to remember every cry, every punishment, every desperate prayer for escape. Skeptics argue that the island's atmosphere, its history, isolation, and damp air, plays tricks on the senses. They say the ghost stories are just echoes of imagination amplified by fear. Yet, even they cannot explain why cameras malfunction inside certain cells, why batteries die in seconds, or why electronic voice recorders capture faint mutterings where no one is speaking. Paranormal investigators have spent long nights in Alcatraz, emerging shaken, describing it as one of the most active sites they've ever explored. Perhaps it's because Alcatraz was never just a prison. It was a place where hope came to die, where every brick absorbed pain and longing. The men who lived and died there left behind more than names on paper. They left fragments of themselves. In the wind that cuts across the bay, in the salt-stained walls, and in the cold silence that descends after the last tour leaves for the night. When the fog rolls in and the city lights fade, Alcatraz stands alone, its cells empty but never truly still. Doors continue to close softly in the distance, voices whisper from unseen corners, and the shadows of prisoners long gone still pace the yard, serving out a sentence that time itself cannot end. In the heart of St. Francisville, Louisiana, stands a Myrtle's plantation, a grand moss-draped estate with white columns and wide verandas that seem frozen in time. Built in 1796 by General David Bradford, it was meant to be a place of Southern elegance, yet it has become one of the most haunted homes in America. Beneath its beauty lies a darker story, one whispered through generations, where grief, betrayal, and restless spirits linger in the humid air. They say at least a dozen ghosts call Myrtle's home, but none more famous than Chloe, the enslaved woman whose legend has come to define the haunting. The story goes that Chloe worked within the Bradford household, tending to the family. When she was caught eavesdropping on her master's private affairs, he punished her brutally, cutting off her ear. To hide the wound, Chloe wrapped her head in a green turban. Fearing her punishment would lead to banishment from the house, Chloe concocted a desperate plan to regain favor. She baked a cake for the family's daughters, mixing in a few crushed oleander leaves, poisonous, but she meant only to make them sick, so she could nurse them back to health and be forgiven. But the dose was too strong. Within hours, the two young girls and their mother were dead. When the rest of the enslaved workers discovered what she had done, they were terrified. Retribution from their owner could be swift and cruel. In panic, they dragged Chloe to a nearby tree and hung her green turban still wrapped tightly around her head. Her body, they say, was thrown into the Mississippi River, but her spirit never left the grounds. Today, visitors and staff often speak of seeing a woman in a green head wrap, standing quietly in a hallway or drifting across a veranda. She appears in mirrors and photographs, her outline faint but unmistakable. One of the most famous photos ever taken at Myrtle's shows a figure standing between two buildings, translucent, as if made of mist, wearing what looks like a turban. Experts have tried to explain away, but the image remains chillingly convincing. Inside, the house feels alive with unseen energy. Windows swing open without reason. Footsteps echo across empty rooms. Tourists standing in the parlor sometimes feel a sudden chill or hear the soft giggle of a child just beyond view. It's said that the laughter comes from the two young girls who died from Chloe's cake, their spirits forever bound to the house. They play tricks on guests, tugging on clothing, knocking over trinkets, and leaving tiny handprints on mirrors. Many visitors describe a strange heaviness in certain hallways, a sorrow that clings to the air. The grand staircase, with its polished rail and worn steps, is often mentioned. Guests walking up alone report a sensation of being watched, the air thickening, as if someone unseen stands close behind them. Some hear low weeping, others a soft rustle of skirts sweeping the floor. A few have fainted, overcome by a wave of grief that seems to come from nowhere. Other spirits have made their presence known as well. There is a figure of a Confederate soldier who appears near the front porch, staring silently into the night. A man in 19th century dress is sometimes seen sitting in the dining room, only to vanish when approached. Doors open slowly on their own, rocking chairs move without a breeze, and chandeliers sway as if nudged by invisible hands. In one of the guest rooms, known for its restless activity, the bed sheets are found rumpled in the morning, as though someone had lain there during the night. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain within minutes, and sudden cold spots hover over floorboards. Paranormal investigators who have spent nights inside the house report capturing faint voices, soft, sudden accents calling out names, sometimes humming lullabies that stop mid-tune. Outside, the ground are quiet and beautiful, live oaks draped in Spanish moss, the reflection of the veranda shimmering in the pond. Yet even in daylight, there is a strange stillness here. Visitors walk along the garden paths, sometimes feel a brush against their arm, as though someone is walking beside them. Others claim to smell jasmine, even when no flowers are in bloom. At dusk, when the light fades and cicadas sing, the plantation seems to change. The air grows colder and the silence becomes aware. The Myrtles plantation has been studied, photographed, and written about for decades, yet no amount of explanation has dispelled its legends. Whether Chloe was real or merely the embodiment of so many untold tragedies from that time, her story has given the plantation a voice. Every creaking floorboard, every whisper in the night, seems to speak of her pain and the weight of the past that the house still carries. Even those who come skeptically often leave changed. They describe a feeling of being touched by something, not malicious, but sorrowful. They say the Myrtles isn't haunted in a traditional sense. It remembers. The walls remember the laughter, the suffering, the sudden silences of life cut short. When the lanterns are extinguished and the house returns to darkness, the plantation breathes on its own. Somewhere, a window creaks open. A woman in a green turban glides silently through the hall. And in the stillness of night, when the world outside is asleep, the Myrtles reminds everyone who dares to enter that the past never truly dies. It lingers, watching, listening, waiting to be heard again. High in the Colorado Rockies, overlooking the mountain town of Estes Park, stand the grand and gleaming Stanley Hotel, a monument of whitewood, red roof, and haunting beauty. Built in 1909 by inventor and entrepreneur Freeland Oscar Stanley, the hotel was meant to be a luxurious getaway for the wealthy elite of the early 20th century. Yet behind its bright facade, behind the laughter of guests and the polished elegance of its halls, lies something older and stranger, a presence that has never left. For decades, the Stanley has been a beacon for travelers, dreamers, and those drawn to the unknown. It inspired one of the greatest horror stories ever written, Stephen King's The Shining. But long before fiction took hold, the real hotel had already built its own legend. Guests and staff alike have whispered of footsteps in empty corridors, music that plays itself, and faces that flicker in the corners of mirrors. The Stanley does not need stories to be haunted. It haunts itself. The story begins with the Stanleys themselves. Freeland and his wife, Flora, adored the hotel. They poured their love and fortune into making it a place of elegance and joy. But when they passed, it seems neither was willing to let go. Visitors often report hearing the gentle melody of a piano drifting through the night. The sound comes from the grand music room, where Mrs. Stanley once practiced for hours each day. The doors are often locked, yet the notes ring out, sometimes soft and lilting, sometimes bold and bright, as if someone invisible sits at the keys, refusing to let the music die. Freeland, too, is said to roam the halls. He appears most often near the lobby and the old billiards room, dressed in formal attire, inspecting the premises as though making sure everything still runs to his exacting standards. Guests who have seen him describe him as courteous but distant, nodding once before fading into nothing. Employees who work late into the night often feel his presence watching over them, a lingering energy of the man who built a dream and still refuses to abandon it. But the Stanleys are not alone. Room 217, perhaps the most infamous in the building, carries a story all its own. In 1911, a chambermaid named Elizabeth Wilson was nearly killed when a gas lamp explosion tore through the room. Though she survived, many say her spirit returned to continue her duties. Guests who stay in 217 often find their luggage unpacked, clothes neatly folded, or shoes lined up at the foot of the bed. Couples report a polite but unmistakable energy in the room, a feeling that someone disapproves of unmarried guests sharing it. One man swore his bed was made while he was still lying in it. Children's laughter is often heard echoing down the long hallways of the fourth floor, where the servants' quarters once were. Guests awoken to the sound of giggling outside their doors or tiny footsteps running past in the night. When they check, the halls are empty. The staff has grown so accustomed to these sounds that they no longer react. They simply smile and say, "The children are playing again." Other rooms have their own personalities. Some guests report cold spots that follow them like shadows. Others see doors slowly creak open on their own. Lights flicker without reason. Photographs blur as if something unseen moves through the frame. A faint scent of perfume sometimes lingers in the air long after the hall has emptied. On stormy nights, voices are heard whispering from the grand staircase, murmured conversations that fade as soon as you step closer. Perhaps the strangest part of the Stanley's haunting is that it doesn't always feel frightening. Many guests describe the atmosphere not as evil, but alive, a place still bustling with echoes of the past. It is as if the hotel itself remembers every dance, every laugh, every tear shed within its walls. The energy of thousands of lives seems to have soaked into woodwork, refusing to fade with time. Stephen King himself stayed in room 217 in 1974 during the hotel's off-season. Wandering its empty corridors, he found inspiration for The Shining. That night, he dreamed of his young son being chased through the halls by a fire hose that came to life. When he awoke, heart pounding, he knew he had found the setting for his story, a place that was beautiful, lonely, and alive in a way that defied reason. The Stanley became the Overlook Hotel, and fiction merged with a haunting that already existed. Even today, paranormal investigators come from all over the world, drawn to the hotel's reputation. They record strange electromagnetic readings, capture flickering lights, and sometimes hear voices calling out names that no one recognizes. Some leave with chills, convinced that they've encountered more than stories. Others say the Stanley simply amplifies whatever people bring into it: fear, curiosity, wonder, reflecting it back in the form of ghosts. As night falls over Estes Park, the Stanley stands illuminated against the dark mountains, its windows glowing softly like hundreds of watchful eyes. Inside, music drifts faintly from the ballroom. The scent of old wood and polished brass fills the air, and the wind carries whispers through the halls. The building seems to breathe. In the stillness, you might hear the faint laughter of Mrs. Stanley, echoing from the piano room. You might glimpse a gentleman in an old-fashioned suit near the staircase, nodding approvingly before fading away. Or you might feel the light brush of unseen fingers straightening your collar, a housekeeper still tending her guests long after death. The Stanley Hotel does not just hold ghosts, it keeps their stories alive. Every flicker of the light, every echo in the corridor, is a memory replaying itself. Here, time folds in on itself. The living and the dead coexist quietly, bound by the walls of a place that refuses to forget. And as the mountains sleep around it, the Stanley remains awake, watching, listening, and forever haunted by its own legend. Rolling hills and sunlit ridges stretch across the landscape of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, but beneath the quiet beauty lies a history drenched in blood. In July of 1863, For 3 harrowing days, tens of thousands of men fought in one of the bloodiest battles in American history. The Union and Confederate armies clashed with unimaginable ferocity, leaving the ground soaked with blood, scarred with cannon fire, and heavy with sorrow that has never truly lifted. Today, Gettysburg's battlefield is serene in appearance, yet many visitors, historians, and locals insist the echoes of that violence remain. Even in modern times, the land seems to carry the weight of the past. At dawn, as fog drifts over the ridges, some report hearing the muffled sounds of drums and bugles, as though the armies are preparing for battle again. The quiet hum of the morning is broken by faint marching footsteps, boots pressing into the earth where soldiers once stood. Many who walk these fields feel eyes upon them, a presence just beyond sight, and an inexplicable chill that comes from nowhere. Ghostly figures are said to appear in blue and gray, Union and Confederate soldiers who relive their last moments. They march in formation along Seminary Ridge and Cemetery Hill, disappearing when approached. Tourists have seen the shimmer of muskets raised, shadows crossing the tree lines, and the flash of bayonets as if the soldiers are trapped in an eternal loop of combat. Some eyewitnesses claim to hear shouted orders, commands carried clearly across empty fields, even though no one else is present. At certain points along the battlefield, the echoes are particularly vivid. Little Round Top is often described as a hot spot. Hikers and history enthusiasts report hearing the clash of metal and the cries of wounded men. Some say that the air grows heavy here, filled with the scent of gunpowder and earth, and that the sound of battle drifts with the wind, carrying the screams and shouts of soldiers long dead. Those who linger too long sometimes feel a nudge or a brush of air as if someone unseen is guiding them across the ground. Devil's Den is another location thick with spectral energy. Jagged boulders and shaded paths make the perfect stage for phantom reenactments. Visitors have seen soldiers crouching behind rocks, emerging to fire invisible rifles. Some have reported the sounds of cannon fire that shake the ground beneath their feet, only to find no signs of recent disturbance. Cameras occasionally capture unexplained shadows darting across images, faint figures standing atop boulders, or flashes of blue and gray where no living person was present. The town of Gettysburg itself, built near the edges of the battlefield, holds its own share of ghostly lore. Residents claim that at night, especially in July, lights appear along the hillsides, torches carried by invisible soldiers. In historic homes and inns, faint cries of the metallic clatter of equipment can be heard, a reminder that the war's impact stretched far beyond the battlefield. For descendants of those who fought, the land remains sacred yet restless. Many who walk the fields report a sense of being observed, a tension that builds as if the past is aware of their presence. Even seasoned historians acknowledge moments when the air grows impossibly still, when cameras fail or recordings pick up voices that were never there. The ground itself seems to refuse rest, holding the memory of sacrifice and terror within its soil. Paranormal investigators frequently explore Gettysburg, often recording phenomena that defy explanation. Electronic voice recorders pick up battle cries, names being called, and faint whispers of men comforting each other. Temperature fluctuations occur unexpectedly, cold spots forming near significant points of conflict. Infrared cameras capture blurred images of figures appearing and vanishing in seconds. Many leave convinced that the battlefield is more than a historical site. It is a living memorial, a place where spirits walk as they did in life, bound to the earth by their final moments. Even the cemeteries, where thousands of Union soldiers are interred, carry their own aura of presence. Visitors report seeing apparitions among the headstones, shadows pacing slowly along the rows, and a feeling of being surrounded without a source. The tolling of bells, the echo of a distant bugle, or the sudden rustle of leaves is often interpreted as a salute, a continuation of duty that death could not end. Walking Gettysburg at dusk, one can feel the weight of history pressing down. The horizon is painted in soft hues, and the fields appear tranquil. Yet the echoes of musket fire, cannon blasts, and soldierly shouts linger just beyond the senses. Those who visit often remark that the experience is more than educational. It is visceral. The land itself remembers the courage, fear, and anguish of the men who fell there, replaying fragments of that agony for those willing to see, hear, and feel it. Gettysburg is not simply haunted by spirits. It is haunted by memory. Every ridge, every tree line, every rock seems to hold a fragment of the past. The soldiers in blue and gray, the cries of the wounded, the smoke of gunfire, they are woven into the very fabric of the landscape. For anyone who walks the fields, listens closely, and opens themselves to the echoes, the Civil War is not over. The battle continues in whispers, in footsteps, in shadows that march forever across the Pennsylvania hills. The streets of Salem, Massachusetts, are quiet now, cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Yet beneath the calm charm of historic homes and quaint shops lies a darkness that refuses to fade. In 1692, Salem became the epicenter of fear, superstition, and hysteria. In a matter of months, 20 people were executed, dozens imprisoned, and countless lives were forever scarred. Today, the sites where those events unfolded are preserved for history, but many visitors claim that the echoes of paranoia, accusation, and terror remain, lingering like a chill in the night air. The old Burying Point Cemetery, one of Salem's oldest burial grounds, stands as a solemn reminder of the town's troubled past. Tombstones lean in uneven rows, carved with the names of ministers, merchants, and victims alike. By day, it is a quiet, reflective space, the kind of place where tourists take photographs and historians ponder the town's history. But as night falls, the atmosphere changes. Guests report feeling watched, the temperature dropping suddenly as though an unseen presence has passed by. Whispers are sometimes heard between the gravestones, voices accusing, murmuring names and tones of judgment. Some swear they've seen figures dressed in colonial attire moving silently through the shadows, vanishing when approached. A short walk from the cemetery lies the Witch House, the only building in Salem that still stands with direct ties to the trials of 1692. Once the home of Judge Jonathan Corwin, who presided over several hearings, the house carries the weight of those fateful days. Visitors often describe an oppressive sensation upon entering. The air thick, almost tangible, as if the walls themselves absorb the fear of those imprisoned or accused. Doors creak open without touch, candles flicker though no draft exists, and faint sounds of hurried footsteps echo through empty hallways. Some say they hear the scratch of quills across parchment, the judge taking notes on accusations that echo into eternity. Others claim glimpses of robed figures slipping to the corners of rooms, always out of reach, always just beyond clear sight. Salem's narrow alleys are perhaps the most unnerving at night. Cobblestones wind between tightly packed buildings, the shadows deep and unbroken. Visitors who wander here alone often report cold fingers brushing their necks, soft whispers calling their names, or sudden gusts that feel as if someone or something is moving just behind them. A number of eyewitnesses describe seeing shadowy silhouettes of women in dark skirts or men in colonial garb, figures that vanish when confronted. The sense of being followed is overwhelming, a reminder that the fear which gripped the town centuries ago still seems to linger, carried by the very stones and timbers of the streets themselves. Stories persist that some spirits are tied to specific acts of cruelty or injustice. A woman accused of witchcraft, imprisoned and left to die in squalor, is said to haunt the attic spaces of her holding cell. Her cries, faint but chilling, are heard when the building is empty. In other areas, cold spots appear suddenly, brushing past the shoulders of those who enter as though unseen hands are reminding them that judgment was passed here without mercy. Visitors have felt the sensation of breath on the back of their necks, even when no one is near, as if the paranoia of 1692 has manifested itself into the present. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to Salem, capturing EVP recordings that include accusations whispered in faint, urgent tones. Cameras sometimes reveal blurred figures standing silently against walls, staring directly at the lens before fading. Thermal imaging has detected unusual cold patterns in rooms long abandoned, and some devices have recorded footsteps moving against the natural flow of air or floorboards that creak in perfectly empty corridors. Many leave unsettled, convinced that Salem's energy is not only historical but conscious, an echo of fear that continues to replay itself for anyone willing to witness it. The Historical Society has preserved many of these locations carefully, ensuring that the architecture remains as it was in the late 17th century. But preservation cannot quiet the past entirely. Visitors walking the narrow alleys or passing the witch house report a feeling of heaviness, a pull of something unseen urging them to move quickly or leave entirely. Even in broad daylight, some feel the cold of judgment, the presence of those wronged or wrongly accused. The streets, the buildings, and the cemetery become conduits, carrying the paranoia and terror forward, letting it touch anyone who steps close enough to notice. Salem is a town that wears its history openly, yet beneath the tourist attractions and museums lies a lingering unease. Each building, each alley, each grave serves as a vessel for the fear, anger, and sorrow of a people whose lives are destroyed by hysteria. When the sun dips below the horizon and the shadows stretch long over the cobblestones, the past feels alive again. The whispers rise, the cold fingers brush the skin, and the spectral figures move once more, carrying the accusations that once tore families and communities apart. Those who walk these streets today are reminded that Salem's dark history is not confined to books or lectures. It is present in the air, in the stone, and in the very shadows that fall across the ground. The ghosts of the accused and the accusers alike remain, replaying the terror of 1692 for anyone willing or unwilling to see. The town does not just remember the trials. It embodies them, a chilling testament to what fear can do and how it can linger long after the living have moved on. Stretching across southern New Jersey, the Pine Barrens is a vast expanse of dense forest, winding rivers and hidden swamps. It is a land of solitude, where the air carries the scent of pine and the ground is soft with centuries of fallen needles. By day, it is serene, almost enchanting, a place where hikers and nature enthusiasts wander without interruption. But by night, or even in the shadowed corners of twilight, this forest tells a different story. The Pine Barrens is alive with whispers, shadows, and legends that refuse to die, the most famous of which is the Jersey Devil. The legend of the Jersey Devil stretches back over 250 years. Born to Mother Leeds in 1735, the creature was said to emerge with wings, hooves, and a terrifying scream. Over the decades, reports of sightings and encounters have been widespread, glowing red eyes between the trees, unexplainable shrieks piercing the night, and strange footprints in the soft soil. Some say the creature stalks the forest, waiting for the unwary traveler who dares to cross its domain. Those who claim to have seen it describe an animal unlike any other, part bat, part horse, part human, moving swiftly and silently through the dense underbrush. But the Jersey Devil is not the only phenomenon in the Pine Barrens. Locals tell of entire towns that appear on maps but vanish when approached, buildings materializing for a moment only to dissolve into the forest. Hikers and hunters have reported stumbling upon deserted cabins or clusters of houses that should exist on no recorded map. When they circle back hours later, the structures are gone, leaving only mud, trees, and silence. These phantom towns seem to be part of the Barrens themselves, as if the forest tests those who wander too deeply, weaving reality and illusion together. Strange lights are also a constant feature of the Barrens. Travelers driving along the narrow, twisting roads report glowing orbs darting between the trees, following cars, or hovering over marshy ground. Some lights appear high among the treetops, flickering like lanterns, then vanish without a trace. Others seem to float just above the forest floor, drifting closer before suddenly shooting upward into the darkness. Scientists and skeptics have tried to explain them as atmospheric phenomena, but the sheer consistency of these sightings over centuries keeps the legend alive. Those who see the lights often describe a sense of being watched, a presence hovering just beyond understanding. Even without the devil or the lights, the Barrens has a reputation for swallowing the unprepared. Travelers, campers, and hunters report becoming hopelessly lost, only to find themselves back where they started, as if the forest itself is shifting. Paths that seem clear disappear, familiar landmarks vanish, and compasses sometimes fail without explanation. The locals have a saying, "Once the Pine Barrens take you, they don't let go." Those who wander too far often speak of hearing voices calling from deep within the trees, indistinct but urgent. or the sound of footsteps crunching just behind them, vanishing when they turn. There are also reports of animals acting strangely. Dogs refuse to enter certain thickets. Birds scatter without apparent reason. And horses shy violently at areas where no danger is visible. Some say the Barrens has its own consciousness, a subtle awareness that keeps watch over everything that enters. Campers have told stories of hearing faint chants in an unrecognizable language, or the rustling of creatures too large or fast to identify, moving just beyond the light of fire. Despite, or perhaps because of, these legends, people continue to be drawn to the Pine Barrens. Some seek the thrill of encountering the Jersey Devil. Others chase the mystery of vanishing towns or the haunting lights. Paranormal investigators arrive with cameras, night vision, and audio equipment, reporting strange readings, sudden drops in temperature, and inexplicable visual anomalies. Many leave unsettled, unsure if what they experienced was myth, hallucination, or something altogether real. The Barrens' atmosphere is thick with history, folklore, and fear. Native American legends speak of spirits that guard the land, of entities that walk between the natural and supernatural worlds. Settlers added stories of witchcraft, cattle mutilations, and unexplained disappearances. Over the centuries, the forest has absorbed these tales, and today, anyone who ventures deep into the pines feels the weight of all that history pressing against them. The woods seem alive, listening, sometimes guiding, sometimes warning, always watching. At twilight, when the sky is a pale orange and the swamps begin to reflect the dying light, the Barrens transforms. Shadows lengthen and stretch between gnarled pines. Mist rises from the marshes, curling around the roots like fingers. In the distance, an unearthly scream echoes, a sound that some swear is the Jersey Devil, others insist is a wind, but no one can be certain. Lights flicker in the forest. Shapes move just beyond the edge of vision, and the feeling of being observed is undeniable. The Pine Barrens is more than a forest. It is a living memory of every legend, every fear, and every unexplained encounter recorded over centuries. It holds the stories of lost travelers, vanished towns, and creatures that defy explanation. Those who enter are reminded that some places are not meant to be tamed, that myth and reality often overlap, and that the Barrens is patient. It waits, watching silently, guarding its secrets, and reminding anyone who dares to walk its trails that some corners of the world belong not to the living, but to the unseen. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum rises against the rolling hills of West Virginia like a fortress of sorrow. Built in 1864, it was intended to house thousands of patients suffering from mental illnesses, a place where care was promised but seldom fully realized. The asylum's walls are massive gray stone, cold to the touch, and designed to contain, not comfort. In its heyday, it was overcrowded, understaffed, and underfunded. Patients were confined to small cells, often subjected to harsh treatments, and left in isolation for long periods. The echoes of their suffering never left the walls. Walking through the asylum today, visitors can feel the weight of its history immediately. The hallways are long and narrow, flanked by rows of doors with heavy iron locks. The ceilings arch high overhead, yet the space feels oppressive, as if the building itself has absorbed decades of despair. Many who enter speak of sudden chills, inexplicable cold spots, and a feeling that they are being watched by something unseen. It is not just an old building. It is a vessel for the countless lives spent within it, a place where echoes linger and the past is palpable. Guests often report hearing the laughter of children in the wards, though the asylum was never home to youth in large numbers. Some claim the sounds are high-pitched, eerie, and disjointed, bouncing through hallways that are otherwise empty. Doors that have been bolted for decades sometimes swing open, revealing darkened cells. Visitors describe seeing shadows moving across the walls, figures that flit in and out of view, indistinct but unmistakably human in shape. The energy of the place feels thick, almost conscious, as if the building itself remembers every scream, every whispered plea, every quiet moment of despair. Padded cells, meant to restrain the most disturbed, are among the most active areas reported by paranormal investigators. Some have recorded faint voices, murmurs of names, fragments of sentences, or the indistinct sounds of someone crying out. Equipment frequently malfunctions within these spaces. Cameras freeze, batteries die rapidly, and temperature readings plummet without reason. Visitors sometimes describe a feeling of claustrophobia, as if the walls themselves are closing in, pressing them into the same corners where patients once writhed in fear and confusion. The central wards are no less unnerving. Ceilings groan under the weight of the old stone, and floorboards creak under even the lightest step. Those walking alone have reported footsteps following them, stopping when they stop, resuming when they move. Whispered warnings drift through the air, voices that seem urgent yet impossible to locate. Some have claimed to feel a presence brush against their shoulders or tug at their clothing, only to find no one nearby. It is as though the asylum retains the restless energy of its inhabitants, replaying their fear and confusion for anyone who wanders too far into its halls. Even the rooms once used for treatments carry their own shadows. Electroshock chambers, seclusion cells, and therapy rooms that have long been abandoned still seem charged with a dark memory. Visitors speak of sudden tingling sensations, unexplained movements, or even a fleeting vision of a figure in a straitjacket disappearing into the far corner. Investigators report electronic voice phenomena capturing fragments of speech, sometimes cries of pain, sometimes faint laughter, and occasionally words that sound like warning or guidance. Some of the asylum's most disturbing reports come from night tours, when the building is empty except for brave or the curious. During these hours, the atmosphere changes, becoming almost alive. Shadows lengthen unnaturally, whispers rise in pitch, and cold drafts move against the natural flow of air. Guests often describe a sense of dread that builds over time, a creeping realization that the building is not only haunted by its past, but seems to actively resist intrusion. It is not malevolent in a simple way. It is the sorrow and trauma of thousands compacted into stone, memory, and air. Beyond the individual experiences, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum feels like a study in isolation. Overcrowding, neglect, and fear shape the lives of its patients, and those conditions created echoes that time cannot erase. Every locked door, every barred window, every narrow hallway seems to carry a fragment of someone's suffering. Visitors speak of hearing conversations that never happened, cries that cannot belong to anyone alive, and laughter that seems too fragmented and high-pitched to be human. The asylum has become a mirror of its past, reflecting the anguish of those who endured it and projecting it into the present. Even in daylight, the building exudes a weighty presence. The sun may illuminate the stone walls and reveal peeling paint and broken fixtures, yet the air remains heavy with history. At night, when darkness settles across the hills, the asylum seems to breathe. Footsteps echo in empty corridors. Doors groan under invisible pressure. Shadows flicker in corners, lingering long enough for the mind to recognize them as figures once alive. It is impossible to leave unchanged, for the building imprints itself on anyone who dares to step inside. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is more than a relic of medical history. It is a monument to the suffering and resilience of those who endured it, a place where echoes refuse to die. Children's laughter, disembodied screams, and shadowy forms are not merely hauntings. They are reminders that isolation and fear leave marks far deeper than stone walls can contain. Those who visit often feel the same unease that patients must have felt, a connection to lives once trapped in darkness. The asylum holds its history like a living presence. And for anyone who walks its halls, it is impossible not to feel that the past is still very much alive. Rising in San Jose, California, the Winchester Mystery House is unlike any other home in the world. Its sprawling labyrinth of rooms, hallways, staircases, and doors seems designed not for comfort but for endless motion. Sarah Winchester, widow of gun magnate William Wirt Winchester, oversaw decades of relentless construction, continuing almost without pause from 1884 until her death in 1922. The result is a bewildering mansion of over 160 rooms, filled with stairs leading to ceilings, doors opening into walls, and windows that peer into other rooms, or sometimes nothing at all. The house is more than architecture. It is a monument to obsession, guilt, and the uncanny. Visitors quickly notice that the Winchester Mystery House has an atmosphere of tension that lingers like a living thing. Even on a sunny day, the hallways feel narrow and suffocating, as if the walls themselves are pressing inward. The mansion does not just welcome guests, it watches them. Tour guides, historians, and paranormal investigators alike report footsteps echoing down corridors long after the group has passed, faint creaks on staircases no one is climbing, and the feeling of being followed by invisible eyes. Every corner seems to hold the potential for the unexpected, a presence waiting just out of sight. The house's strange architecture contributes to the sense of unease. Stairs sometimes lead directly into ceilings, forcing visitors to stop and wonder at their purpose. Doors open onto walls, rooms, or drop-offs, and windows reveal nothing beyond the room itself or other hidden spaces. Each twist in turn feels disorienting, a deliberate confusion that many believe was meant to thwart spirits. According to legend, Sarah Winchester believed that she was haunted by the souls of those killed by Winchester rifles, and that continuous construction would confuse and appease them. Walking to the mansion, it is easy to imagine unseen forces slipping through hidden passages, moving between the walls that were built to trap or mislead them. Voices are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Guests hear murmured words in empty rooms, conversations that stop abruptly when someone approaches, and whispers drifting down hallways with no visible source. Sometimes, the voices seem urgent, like warnings or commands. Other times, they are soft and sorrowful, almost like echoes of past regrets. Even experienced paranormal investigators admit to being unsettled by the consistency and clarity of these sounds, which appear to respond to the presence of living humans. The mansion feels as if it remembers, and as if it communicates in its own haunting way. Footsteps are another recurrent occurrence. Visitors often report hearing the distinct tread of someone walking behind them, only to turn and find nothing. In some areas, the sound seems to circle, approaching from one corridor, disappearing, then appearing again from another. Some have claimed that stairs groan under invisible weight, while that floors creak in rooms no one occupies. The cumulative effect is a sense of being accompanied, though no one is there. This phenomenon has led many to conclude that the mansion itself is a repository of restless energy, each room echoing the decades of continuous construction and the lives that passed through it. Beyond the auditory experiences, many describe an oppressive emotional atmosphere. Some visitors feel a heavy weight on their shoulders, a sense of guilt or sorrow that seems to radiate from the walls. Others feel a prickling on the back of the neck, a cold brush of air, or an inexplicable sensation of being guided or watched through the labyrinthine passages. The energy is subtle but persistent, building a tension that is nearly tangible. Even those who do not believe in ghosts often leave feeling disoriented, uneasy, and aware that something about the mansion cannot be explained by architecture alone. Paranormal investigators have long been fascinated by the Winchester House. Recording equipment frequently picks up voices, footsteps, and other phenomena, while cameras sometimes capture fleeting shapes or shadows that move independently of the living. Investigators report sudden drops in temperature, lights flickering without cause, and objects seemingly shifting on their own. Even skeptics agree that the house seems to act with intent, as if it is aware of its visitors and responding to them in subtle, unsettling ways. The mansion's complexity mirrors Sarah Winchester herself, a woman driven by grief, guilt, and a sense of duty to unseen forces. She poured her fortune into an endless series of expansions and renovations, creating a building that defies logic and expectation. Visitors walking its halls cannot help but feel the weight of that obsession. The house is more than haunted. It is haunted by purpose, by design, and by decades of unresolved sorrow. Each room, stairwell, and corridor seems to carry the imprint of her life and fears, echoing with the footsteps, voices, and whispers of a place built to hold and confuse the dead. At twilight, the mansion takes on a life of its own. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the hallways. Sunlight through hidden windows forms patterns that seem deliberate, and the air grows heavy with anticipation. The house does not simply exist. It moves, it watches, it listens. Those who linger often feel a presence brushing past them, leading them deeper into maze, or turning them back before they reach the edge of some invisible boundary. The Winchester Mystery House is a place where architecture and hauntings are inseparable. Doors that lead nowhere, stairs to ceilings, and corridors that twist endlessly are not merely oddities. They are part of the mansion's spirit. Footsteps, whispers, and shadows make the visitor aware that they are not alone. This is a home built by grief and fear, a house that continues to hold the weight of those emotions long after its creator has passed. To walk through its rooms is to step into the mind of Sarah Winchester, to feel the presence of restless spirits, and to encounter a house where every corner is haunted not just by ghosts, but by the intentions and obsessions that built it. In Fall River, Massachusetts, the Lizzie Borden house stands as a chilling reminder of one of the most infamous crimes in American history. In 1892, Andrew and Abby Borden were brutally murdered in their home, struck repeatedly with a hatchet. The crime shocked the nation, and suspicion immediately fell on their daughter, Lizzie Borden. Though she was acquitted after a sensational trial, the events left a permanent stain on the house and its history. Today, the home operates as a bed and breakfast and museum, yet for many, it is less a quaint historic site and more a lingering presence of tragedy. Guests who spend the night often report experiences that defy explanation. One of the most commonly reported sensations is the feeling of being watched, especially near the staircase landing where Lizzie would have moved between floors. Visitors have described a sudden heaviness in the air, a chill that creeps around the shoulders and neck, and the subtle sense that someone is following them even when they are alone. The house seems to respond to presence, as though it is aware of every footstep, every whisper, every heartbeat. Whispers are frequently reported in the bedrooms, hallways, and corners of the home. Some describe them as urgent murmurs, almost accusatory, while others are soft, mournful, and indecipherable. Guests often hear these sounds at night, when the house is otherwise silent, and they seem to come from impossible directions. From under the bed, from the walls, or from the staircase that connects the floors. Some visitors have awakened to the sound of a name being called in the darkness, a voice too faint to identify, but unmistakably human. Cold spots are another hallmark of the house's supernatural activity. Temperatures drop suddenly in certain areas, often around the beds or in hallways. Guests have described sheets becoming icy to the touch, and a draft that feels intentional, brushing past them as if someone unseen is moving through the room. Even in the summer, the house can feel unnaturally cold, and many report an emotional heaviness that mirrors the physical chill, a sense of fear, unease, or grief that seems to seep from the very walls. Tapping and knocking are also frequently reported. These sounds often occur in the middle of the night, rhythmic and deliberate, coming from areas where no one could be present. Some guests have felt the vibration of footsteps above their heads, only to discover the floor is empty. Others hear faint raps on walls, windows, or doors, as if someone is attempting to communicate. Paranormal investigators have recorded similar phenomena, capturing sounds that appear on audio playback, even when no one was in the vicinity. The staircase, in particular, has a reputation for unusual activity. It was here, in the moments before and after the murders, that movement would have been frequent, whether for household tasks or during the chaos of the crime. Many overnight guests report feeling pressure or the sensation of someone standing behind them while ascending or descending. Shadows are sometimes seen lingering near the banister, disappearing when approached, and the sound of footsteps climbing or descending alone is a common occurrence. The stairs, like much of the house, seem to remember, replaying fragments of the past in eerie, disorienting ways. Visitors have also reported seeing full apparitions or fleeting figures. Some claim to glimpse a woman in period dress near the top of the stairs or in the hallways, appearing for a brief moment before vanishing. Others describe shadowy forms moving in the bedrooms or hallways, quick and indistinct, but undeniably present. Even those who arrive skeptical of ghosts often find themselves unnerved by these experiences, feeling the history of the house pressing around them in a way that is both physical and psychological. The emotional weight of the Lizzie Borden house is palpable. Guests often leave with a lingering sense of tension, a recognition that the events of 1892 still resonate in the very structure. The combination of whispers, Cold air, footsteps, and shadows creates an environment where history feels alive, as if the house itself refuses to let go of the tragedy that occurred within its walls. It is not just haunted by spirits, but by memory, a permanent echo of grief, accusation, and unresolved fear. Some of the most unsettling reports come from those who stay overnight. The intimacy of a night spent sleeping in the same rooms where murder occurred seems to amplify the house's energy. Guests report dreams of figures standing at the foot of the bed, feelings of pressure on their chests, and the unmistakable sensation that someone is watching, waiting, or remembering. These experiences are often consistent, repeated by multiple visitors, and have cemented the house's reputation as one of America's most haunted homes. The Lizzie Borden House is more than a museum. It is a vessel for the past. Every creaking floorboard, every draft through an unseen gap, every whisper in the night serves as a reminder of the events that stained this home with tragedy. Guests and investigators alike describe an environment that is intensely alive with memory, where the lines between the living and the dead blur. To enter the house is to step into history, not just observe it, but to feel it, to sense the weight of accusation, grief, and the unanswered questions that linger over the Borden family to this day. For those who dare to stay, the experience is unforgettable. The house does not simply preserve the past. It plays it out, a continuous echo of murder, suspicion, and unresolved spirits. Whispers, shadows, tapping, and cold air are not just stories. They are manifestations of a history that refuses to be forgotten. The Lizzie Borden House remains a chilling testament to one of the darkest nights in American domestic history, a place where the past never truly sleeps, and the echoes of 1892 can still be felt in every corner. Tucked away in the dense forest of Illinois lies Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, a small and nearly forgotten burial ground that most passers-by would barely notice. Overgrown weeds twist around the weathered headstones, and the trees cast long, dark shadows that seem to linger even in the light of day. On the surface, it is quiet, a peaceful, if neglected, remnant of the past. But those who linger after sunset often speak of experiences that defy explanation, as though the cemetery itself has preserved not only the remains of the dead, but echoes of the lives and spirits once part of this place. Photographers have long been drawn to Bachelor's Grove, hoping to capture the quiet beauty of the overgrown stones and the soft light filtering through the trees. Yet many leave with more than just pictures. Some snapshots have captured glowing figures seated on tombstones, faint outlines of forms that were never visible to the naked eye. The most famous of these is a spectral woman in white, often seen perched silently among the gravestones, her expression unreadable, her presence calm yet unsettling. Those who report seeing her say that she seems aware of visitors, watching quietly before fading into the mist. The cemetery's atmosphere is heavy with the weight of time. Paths twist unpredictably, and the forest surrounding the graves seems to shift subtly, making it easy to lose one's bearings. Visitors have described an almost hallucinatory quality to the air, where distances feel longer or shorter than they should, and the positions of trees and stones appear altered when looked at from different angles. Some suggest that time itself behaves strangely in Bachelor's Grove, stretching, compressing, or looping, as if the cemetery exists partially outside the normal flow of reality. Phantom horses and carriages have been reported by those brave enough to explore the cemetery at night. From the darkness between the trees comes the sound of hooves on dirt, wheels creaking, and the rustle of unseen harnesses. Many who hear it stop, expecting to see a carriage emerge, only for the sound to fade without visual confirmation. Occasionally, a flicker of light reflects off what appears to be polished brass or glass, yet when approached, the figure disappears entirely, leaving nothing but the silent, overgrown grounds. Water at Bachelor's Grove is equally deceptive. The small pond near the center of the cemetery has long been associated with unusual activity. Visitors frequently hear splashing at night, as though someone or something is moving through the water, yet no one is ever visible. Some report faint reflections of figures in the pond's surface that vanish when the angle of view changes. And others speak of ripples forming in the otherwise still water, as though unseen hands are stirring it. It is a place where reality feels tenuous, where the boundary between the living and the dead becomes uncertain. Time and memory seem to twist in the cemetery. Those who enter often experience a disorienting sense of déjà vu, feeling as though they have walked the paths before, though it is their first visit. Sound of laughter, footsteps, or whispers drift through the trees, seeming both near and far. Shadows move where no object can cast them, and shapes flit just beyond the periphery of vision. Even seasoned ghost hunters report unease, acknowledging that Bachelor's Grove has a subtle way of warping perception, making every visitor question what they see, hear, and feel. The overgrown nature of the cemetery only amplifies its eerie qualities. Headstones lean at impossible angles, inscriptions worn smooth by decades of weather and neglect. Twisting roots rise from the earth like fingers, and tangled vines crawl over the graves, hiding the remains of those long forgotten. It is as if nature and spirits had conspired to reclaim this space, blending decay and apparition into a landscape that is at once tangible and otherworldly. Walking among the graves, one feels the presence of countless souls, not just in the form of figures or sounds, but in the atmosphere itself. Thick, heavy, and unrelenting. Photographs from the cemetery have fueled its reputation for decades. Many images show spectral shapes that appear human but are subtly distorted, elongated shadows, glowing forms, or figures that seem to hover rather than stand. Some frames capture motion where there should be none, leaving an eerie sense that time and space bend in ways impossible to explain. These images are often taken by accident, yet they consistently convey a feeling of presence, an acknowledgement that the living are not alone in Bachelor's Grove. Those who explore the cemetery after dark often speak of an intense, almost hypnotic quiet, interrupted only by the occasional rustle of branches or distant bird call. It is during these moments that the spectral activity seems strongest. Glimpses of the woman in white, the fleeting outline of horses and carriages, splashes in the pond, or shapes moving in the mist. The experience is immersive, unsettling, and impossible to forget. Even in the daylight, the cemetery retains a sense of latent activity, as though the spirits are simply waiting, observing, and preserving their presence until the night returns. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery is more than a burial ground. It is a place where the line between the living and the dead blurs. Time distorts, shadows move, and figures appear and vanish as though carried on the wind. Visitors leave with photographs, memories, and often a sense of awe mixed with dread, aware that the cemetery is a living record of what it means to linger after death. Here, the past does not remain buried. It walks, it watches, and it whispers, leaving those who enter forever changed by the subtle, haunting presence of Bachelor's Grove. On the quiet sands of Pawleys Island, South Carolina, a figure appears long before the sky darkens and the wind begins to howl. Known as a gray man, the spectral presence has been cited for centuries, a harbinger of storms and a silent guardian of the coast. Residents speak of him appearing along the shoreline, just where the Atlantic waves meet the sand, hours or even days before a hurricane arrives. Cloaked in gray, his outline is faint but unmistakable, standing resolute against the rising tide, as if watching both the ocean and those who live along it. The earliest recorded sightings date back to the 19th century, though locals claim the legend is older, passed down through generations. Those who see the gray man describe a sense of calm that contrasts sharply with the chaos soon to come. There is no sense of menace in his presence, no warning of personal harm, only a quiet insistence to prepare, to heed the approaching danger. It is as though he exists to bridge the gap between human awareness and the raw, destructive power of nature. On the beach, the gray man appears in varying forms, sometimes as a faint silhouette, other times as a more defined figure draped in a flowing gray cloak. Witnesses describe the image as partially transparent, blending with the mist and horizon, yet fully present, commanding attention. His gaze is said to follow the ocean, yet he seems aware of the people on the shore, his silent presence urging them to act. Those who have encountered him report a strange sensation of reassurance mixed with urgency, as if the storm could be faced with preparation, but only if the warning is heeded. Residents of Pawleys Island recount stories of spotting the gray man in the days before hurricanes that would later devastate the area. They describe walking along the deserted beach at dawn or dusk and seeing the figure standing alone, motionless yet undeniable. Some initially dismissed the sighting, attributing it to shadows or the interplay of light on the water. But by the following day, the wind shifts, clouds gather, and the unmistakable signs of an approaching hurricane become evident. Those who took the sighting seriously often survive with minimal damage, having had time to evacuate or secure their homes. The gray man's appearances are not limited to the shoreline. Some claim he can be seen on elevated dunes, where he seems to watch both the island and the open sea. Others report sensing a cold breeze or a sudden drop in temperature near the spot where he is later seen, as though his presence affects the very air around him. Photographs are rare, as the figure often appears blurred or semi-transparent when captured, reinforcing the idea that he is a supernatural sentinel rather than a man in a coat. Stories of the gray man emphasize his role as a warning rather than a threat. Those who encounter him describe an almost tangible sense of purpose emanating from his form. It is not fear he instills, but awareness, a quiet insistence to prepare for what is coming. In a region where hurricanes are a constant threat, the legend of the gray man serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between human life and nature's unpredictability. He is a guardian figure, appearing in time to save lives, though the exact reason for his devotion remains a mystery. Some accounts suggest the gray man is tied to specific locations on the island, often appearing at low tide where the sand is firm and the horizon stretches endlessly. Others describe fleeting glimpses at dawn, when the ocean mist blurs a line between water and sky. His presence is sometimes accompanied by a hush in the wind, a moment of eerie stillness before the roar of the storm arrives. The juxtaposition of this calm with the impending chaos creates a surreal experience, one that witnesses recall vividly even decades later. The legend has been passed down through generations, blending history, folklore, and lived experience. Early settlers told tales of a mysterious figure walking the beach before hurricanes, warning families to prepare. Fishermen spoke of spotting him while checking their nets, sensing a storm days before any official weather report. Over time, the gray man became part of the island's identity, a spectral protector whose appearances are regarded with both respect and awe. Modern sightings continue to reinforce the legend. Residents and visitors alike report seeing the figure in gray, sometimes walking slowly along the shoreline, other times standing completely still, gazing toward the horizon. People have learned to recognize the signs. The gray man's presence is often followed by shifts in the weather, sudden drops in temperature, and a sense of tension in the air. Those who pay attention often prepare accordingly, boarding up windows, securing property, or evacuating the island in time to avoid disaster. The gray man of Pawleys Island is more than a ghost story. He embodies a human desire to find meaning and warning in the face of nature's fury. His silent appearances are a bridge between the ordinary and the extraordinary, a reminder that even in isolation, someone or something watches over those at risk. He is a sentinel at the edge of the sea, a calm figure in gray against the storm, offering protection in the form of warning. Those who see him never forget the experience, nor the subtle, undeniable sense that some forces, though invisible, care deeply for the lives of those who walk the shores of Pawleys Island. In every sighting, the story is consistent. The gray man appears before the hurricane, offering a presence both reassuring and solemn. He is a warning, a protector, and a reminder that even in the face of nature's fury, there exists a watchful eye, a ghostly figure standing silently where the ocean meets the sand, guiding those who are willing to see, willing to listen, and willing to survive. Moored permanently in Long Beach, California, the Queen Mary stands as a majestic relic of the past, a grand ocean liner that once carried thousands across the Atlantic and now serves as a hotel and tourist attraction. But beneath her polished decks and Art Deco elegance lies a history steeped in tragedy, and countless visitors have come to speak not only of her beauty, but of her lingering spirits. Hundreds perished aboard the ship over the decades, some in wartime accidents, others in tragic mishaps, and still more in less well-documented circumstances. Today, the Queen Mary is considered one of the most haunted locations in the United States, and those who step aboard often report experiences that defy explanation. From the moment visitors enter, there is an unmistakable sense of presence. Long corridors echo with footsteps when no one else is around, and doors open and close on their own, as though unseen hands are guiding them. Guests have described seeing shadowy sailors walking calmly through walls, their uniforms faintly visible yet intangible, as if they are caught between the past and the present. The sounds of phantom machinery are also common. The steady hum of engines, the hiss of steam valves, or the rhythmic pounding of the ship's bow against waves, even though the Queen Mary has been permanently docked for decades. Among the most frequently cited apparitions is the Lady in White, a ghostly woman who glides silently through ballrooms, lounges, and corridors. Dressed in flowing white attire that seems to shimmer unnaturally in dim light, she has been spotted drifting across floors where guests are dining or gathering. Many claim her appearance is accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature or an inexplicable stillness in the air, as if the room itself holds its breath in her presence. Some have reported seeing her watching them from a distance, then disappearing without a sound, leaving behind only the faint scent of perfume from another era. The lower decks of the Queen Mary are notorious for paranormal activity. These areas, once bustling with crew and machinery, have seen their share of tragedy. One of the most infamous incidents involves a sailor who became trapped in a watertight door and perished. Guests and staff claim that the lower decks carry a dense, oppressive energy. Cold spots appear along corridors, doors slam unexpectedly, and fleeting shadows cross the walls. Some visitors hear muffled cries or distant shouting, often impossible to attribute to any living source. Paranormal investigators frequently focus on these decks, capturing unexplained EVP, electronic voice phenomena, and anomalies in camera footage, reinforcing the sense that this section of the ship remains haunted by its tragic past. Cabins throughout the ship are also reported to harbor activity. Guests staying overnight have told stories of their beds being disturbed, blankets pulled, or the sensation of someone standing at the foot of the bed. Lights flicker without cause, and radios or televisions sometimes turn on or off spontaneously. Many of these experiences occur in cabins located in areas of the ship that saw historical accidents or deaths, lending the encounters an eerie sense of connection to events long past. Public areas are not immune to the Queen Mary's strange activity. The grand staircases and dining rooms, though now polished for tourists, are said to reverberate with ghostly echoes. Patrons hear the sounds of footsteps on the polished decks, murmurs of conversation, and faint laughter that cannot be traced to any living source. Some report objects moving inexplicably, glasses sliding along tables, doors swinging open, or items disappearing and reappearing elsewhere. These phenomena are subtle yet consistent enough to create a pervasive sense that the ship itself is alive with memory. The Queen Mary's history as a troop transport during World War II adds another layer to her spectral presence. Soldiers who passed through her decks, often in large, cramped numbers, left impressions of exhaustion, anxiety, and fear. Many believe that these emotional energies remain, mingling with the tragic echoes of those who perish in accidents or on long voyages. As a result, the Queen Mary is not merely haunted by individual ghosts, but by a cumulative weight of lives, histories, and unresolved deaths. Visitors often describe an atmosphere that is thick, almost tactile, a combination of historical grandeur and lingering unease. The ship's long, narrow corridors, the hidden corners of crew decks, and the echoing machinery rooms all contribute to an environment where the past feels present. Even the most skeptical guests admit to a subtle, inexplicable tension, a sense that unseen eyes are watching, guiding, or warning. The Queen Mary is a place where history and the supernatural intersect. The sailors walking through walls, the lady in white gliding through ballrooms, the hum of phantom machinery, and the haunted lower decks all tell a story of a vessel that carries its past as a living entity. Guests report not only witnessing these phenomena, but sensing the emotions embedded in them: fear, loss, vigilance, and perhaps a lingering attachment to the ship they once called home. Spending time aboard the Queen Mary is an immersive experience. The ship is both magnificent and haunting, a reminder that every journey she undertook, every life aboard her, and every death that occurred has left an indelible mark. Footsteps in empty corridors, whispers in the dark, and the lady in white's silent watch all reinforce that the Queen Mary is more than a ship. She is a vessel of memory, grief, and spectral presence. Those who step onto her decks are stepping into a world where the boundary between the living and the dead is fragile, where history lingers in the shadows, and where the ocean liner's tragic legacy continues to walk among the living. In the quiet town of Amityville, New York, a seemingly ordinary house on Ocean Avenue became one of the most infamous sites of supernatural terror in America. In 1974, the DeFeo family was brutally murdered within its walls. Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed 6 of his family members as they slept, a crime that shocked the nation and left the house steeped in tragedy. But the story did not end there. Less than 2 years later, the Lutz family moved in, hoping for a fresh start, only to experience events that would turn their lives upside down and cement the house's reputation as a place of terror. Almost immediately, the Lutz family began noticing phenomena that defied explanation. Doors slammed of their own accord, cold spots appeared in the dead of summer, and strange, unidentifiable smells permeated the air. The activity escalated quickly, creating an oppressive atmosphere that seemed to press down on the family both physically and mentally. Visitors and investigators would later recount the feeling that the house itself was alive, reacting to the presence of those within it, aware and hostile. One of the most notorious features reported was the appearance of green slime. It would ooze inexplicably from the walls, thick and viscous, often in patterns that resembled letters or symbols. The slime was accompanied by walls that seemed to sweat, exuding moisture without any source of plumbing or condensation. These unsettling manifestations were not mere tricks of the imagination. They were tactile, measurable, and often terrifying in their immediacy. The Lutz family described waking to find the slime pooling along baseboards or dripping from light fixtures, a constant, disturbing reminder that their home was no longer a safe space. Voices and sounds became an almost constant presence. The family reported hearing whispers, laughter, and conversations in empty rooms with no discernible source. At times, the voices would call out their names or issue threats, demanding attention and inducing fear. Doors would slam or creak in time with the sounds, as if the house were conducting a malevolent orchestra, blending sound and motion to unsettle those inside. Even objects would move on their own. Furniture shifted in the night, drawers opened and closed, and items would vanish only to reappear in impossible locations. The sense of violation was total. The home, a place meant to offer comfort, had become a source of dread. The most disturbing reports often involved the perception of a demonic presence. Shadows appeared in hallways and rooms, dark shapes that seemed to observe and stalk the family. Some described figures that hovered near the ceiling or moved unnaturally across walls, disappearing when approached but leaving a palpable sense of malevolence. The Lutz family reported seeing glowing eyes in the dark, feeling unseen hands push or touch them, and experiencing inexplicable nausea or dread when in certain parts of the house. It was as though the very structure had absorbed the violence of the DeFeo murders and now radiated it outward, turning the home into a vessel for something evil. Nightmares and psychological torment compounded the terror. Family members described vivid, recurring dreams in which the house itself came alive, walls closing in, floors tilting, and the air thickening with the presence of something sinister. The experience was exhausting, the terror not confined to night, but lingering through the day. Visitors who entered the home often felt an oppressive weight, a sense that the house resented their presence, watching and waiting for the right moment to manifest its influence. Paranormal investigators who entered the Amityville house reported similar phenomena. Cameras and recording devices picked up unexplained sounds, objects shifted mysteriously, and some captured fleeting images or shadows that had no physical origin. Even skeptics were affected by the pervasive sense of unease, describing sensations of cold, pressure, and being observed as if the house were testing their resolve. The patterns of activity were so intense and consistent that the home could not easily be dismissed as coincidence or imagination. The Amityville Horror House remains a symbol of domestic terror, illustrating the fragility of safety and the vulnerability of the spaces we call home. Whether the stories are entirely true, partially exaggerated, or some combination, the legend endures because it taps into a primal fear. The idea that a place meant for family and refuge can become a vessel for evil. Walls that move, voices that speak, slime that oozes, and the ever-present sense of demonic gaze all contribute. to the enduring image of the house as something more than wood and brick, a living nightmare anchored in reality. Today, the house on Ocean Avenue still stands, a structure both ordinary and infamous. Tourists, paranormal enthusiasts, and curious visitors come to witness the legend, drawn by the story of the DeFeo murders and the Lutz family's horrifying experiences. The house is quiet now, yet its history and the aura of dread that lingers in its walls continue to haunt imagination. The Amityville Horror House is not just a site of historical tragedy. It is a reminder of the darkness that can dwell in the most familiar places. A chilling testament to how a home can become a trap, a witness, and a conduit for the unexplainable. For those who enter or study the house, the lesson is clear. Evil does not always announce itself in thunder or fire. Sometimes it creeps silently, slithers along the walls, whispers in night, and makes a home out of terror. The Amityville Horror House endures not only because of what happened there, but because it continues to embody the fear of the familiar turned dangerous. The intimate transformed into something unknowable, and the home that is no longer safe. Standing majestically on the shores of Coronado Island, California, the Hotel del Coronado is more than a grand Victorian resort. It is a place steeped in mystery and lingering tragedy. Since its opening in 1888, the hotel has drawn guests with its luxury and charm, yet one story continues to haunt the halls more than any other. The tale of Kate Morgan, a young woman who was found dead at the hotel in 1892 under circumstances that remain unexplained. Over a century later, visitors and staff alike claim that her presence can still be felt, especially in and around room 302, where her final days were spent. Kate Morgan was reportedly a troubled young woman, burdened with unknown troubles and seeking solitude at the hotel. Her death shocked the staff and the local community, and although official reports attempted to explain the circumstances, rumors and speculation quickly spread. From that moment, strange phenomena began to be associated with the room and surrounding hallways. Guests staying nearby or passing through report sudden cold spots, doors that creak open or shut by themselves, and windows that seem to open against the wind. Even in the brightly lit corridors of the hotel, shadows appear at the edges of vision, moving with a presence that seems deliberate yet intangible. Room 302 has become legendary among those who claim to experience the supernatural. Many who have stayed overnight report an overwhelming sense of unease upon entering. The air feels heavier, colder, as if the room itself remembers the sorrow of Kate's final moments. Lights flicker without explanation, and electrical devices behave erratically, turning on or off despite being untouched. Some visitors hear soft footsteps pacing the carpet, or the faint sound of a woman sighing, as though Kate is walking the hallways searching for something or someone. The presence is described not as threatening, but as profoundly sorrowful, a lingering echo of despair that refuses to dissipate. Witnesses often speak of seeing Kate herself, a figure in period dress, standing silently near the windows or along the hallway outside her room. She is described as delicate and pale, her expression distant, eyes focused somewhere beyond the room's walls. The apparition vanishes when approached, yet the sensation of being watched persists long after she disappears. Guests report feeling a pressure on the shoulders, a whisper in the ear, or an inexplicable chill that seems to settle around them, as if the spirit is reminding the living that the story of her death has never been forgotten. The hotel staff has long been aware of these reports. Housekeepers and security personnel describe unusual occurrences during routine inspections. Furniture slightly shifted, doors left ajar despite being locked, and strange cold drafts that appear to have no source. Some have heard the faint sound of a woman weeping or moving about at odd hours, only to find halls empty when they investigate. Over the years, paranormal investigators have recorded unexplained phenomena in room 302 and the adjacent corridors. Flickering lights, sudden temperature drops, and occasional electromagnetic anomalies captured on meters and cameras. Guests who experience the haunting often describe a mixture of fascination and fear. Kate Morgan's presence is not overtly malevolent, but it is undeniably persistent. She seems tethered to the room and the hotel itself, moving silently through the corridors, gazing from windows, and lingering near doorways. Some say her apparition appears most vividly at night, when the hotel is quiet and the shadows are long. While others claim she can be sensed even during the day, a subtle pull on the mind and emotions of anyone sensitive to the unusual. The legend of Kate Morgan has become an integral part of the Hotel del Coronado's history, drawing curiosity seekers, paranormal enthusiasts, and those fascinated by unexplained phenomena. Many visitors are drawn to the mystery, hoping for a glimpse of the ghostly figure or the chance to experience the strange occurrences firsthand. Room 302 has been documented in countless stories and articles, each recounting the unsettling experiences that continue to plague those who spend time there. Even skeptics often report an undeniable sensation of being observed, of stepping into a space that is charged with sorrow and unresolved presence. Some believe that Kate Morgan's spirit is trapped by the circumstances of her death, replaying the final moments of her life over and over. Others suggest she remains attached to the hotel itself, a witness to the many years and countless guests that have passed through since 1892. Whatever the explanation, her presence is consistent. Lights flicker, doors creak, cold air swirls, and her figure occasionally appears, pale and distant, haunting the halls where she was last seen alive. Visitors to the Hotel del Coronado often leave with an awareness that the building is more than brick and timber. It is a repository of memory, grief, and lingering presence. The story of Kate Morgan serves as a reminder that some tragedies do not fade with time. Her spirit continues to roam, a silent guardian of her own story, her sorrow echoing through grand hallways, through room 302, and along the ocean breeze that sweeps the hotel grounds. To spend time in the Hotel del Coronado is to walk alongside history, to feel the weight of loss, and sense the subtle, haunting presence of Kate Morgan, whose story continues to linger over a century later. Rising from the streets of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Eastern State Penitentiary stands as a fortress of stone and shadow, a monument to one of the earliest and most ambitious experiments in incarceration. Opened in 1829, it was heralded as a model for penitence and reform. But within its thick walls, human suffering became an ever-present reality. The prison was designed to isolate, to break spirits under the guise of rehabilitation. Solitary confinement, enforced silence, and grueling labor created an environment where despair festered and echoes of agony seeped into the very stone. Today, long after the last prisoner walked its halls, the penitentiary continues to bear the weight of those tormented souls. Walking to the massive iron gates, visitors immediately feel a shift in atmosphere. The air is colder, heavier, as though the building itself remembers every footstep, every scream, every whispered plea for mercy. The narrow corridors stretch into darkness, lined with small cells whose iron bars are still polished by decades of hands long gone. Footsteps echo through the empty halls, not always matching the movements of the living. Guests often report hearing the sound of solitary pacing, the faint scrape of shoes on concrete, as if an inmate is still walking in circles, trapped by routines that no longer exist. Voices are another common phenomenon. In the solitary wings, visitors hear murmurs, sometimes cries, sometimes laughter that turns suddenly chilling. It is a laughter that does not belong to the living, high-pitched and frantic, echoing as though bouncing from one cell to another. Some describe whispers calling names, voices that seem to come from inside the walls themselves, yet no source can be found. The echoes are so vivid that even seasoned paranormal investigators report a shiver running down the spine, a sense that the penitentiary is listening, observing, and perhaps even responding. Dark shadows move between the cells, flitting just out of clear view. Visitors glimpse forms standing in the corner of an eye, only for them to vanish when directly looked at. These shadows are described as human in shape, yet impossibly tall or elongated, as if the suffering of the prisoners has warped into a spectral form. Many accounts suggest these apparitions are drawn to areas where the most intense isolation occurred, particularly in the solitary confinement blocks, where inmates endured weeks or months with almost no human contact. The penitentiary was notorious for its cruel practices, intended to reform through isolation, but often resulting in mental collapse. Prisoners were kept in darkness for long hours, with only a small slit of light entering their cells. Guards enforced silence strictly, punishing the faintest sound. Some inmates went mad, others died, and many endured psychological torment that left permanent scars. The legacy of their suffering is said to linger, a palpable energy that visitors report feeling as they walk the damp, cold corridors. Even the walls, cracked and weathered, seem to hum with memory, resonating with the echoes of pain embedded within them. Among the most visited areas is Cell Block 12, one of the longest rows of solitary cells. Guests report hearing footsteps pacing back and forth, doors rattling as though slammed by unseen hands, and the faint smell of sweat and despair that inexplicably lingers despite decades of abandonment. Some visitors describe sitting quietly in a cell and feeling a presence press against their shoulders, an invisible weight that vanishes if they turn to confront it. It is as if the penitentiary remembers the physical and emotional confinement of its inhabitants and refuses to release them even in death. Laughter in Eastern State Penitentiary is particularly disturbing. Unlike ordinary mirth, it is hollow, echoing unnaturally, and sometimes shifts into screams or wails without warning. Guests have described hearing it at times when they are alone, wandering long, empty corridors, or standing outside cells where no living human is present. Investigators have recorded these sounds with equipment sensitive to vibrations and electromagnetic fields, capturing anomalies that suggest more than mere imagination. The laughter, like the whispers and footsteps, seems tied to the prison's dark history, an auditory residue of agony that refuses to fade. Even outside the cells, the penitentiary retains its oppressive aura. Visitors note that the temperature drops suddenly, shadows stretch unnaturally across the cracked floors, and objects sometimes shift as if nudged by unseen hands. Photographs taken within the facility occasionally capture unexplained shapes or orbs, fleeting glimpses of forms that cannot be attributed to dust, light, or camera error. The cumulative effect is that the prison feels alive in a spectral sense, animated not by the living but by the echoes of the tortured, the restless, and the broken. Eastern State Penitentiary is more than a historic building. It is a monument to human suffering, a place where the consequences of isolation, fear, and cruelty are preserved in the very fabric of its construction. Footsteps echo in empty halls, voices whisper from the shadows, laughter pierces the silence, and dark forms move between iron bars. Visitors sense the weight of the past pressing against them, a reminder that while the inmates may be gone, their pain is embedded forever. The penitentiary is not merely haunted. It is a living memory of agony, a stark testament to the cost of punishment, and a place where history refuses to rest quietly. In the heart of Old Town San Diego, the Whaley House stands as both a museum and a monument to a dark, layered history. Constructed in 1857 by Thomas Whaley, the house was built atop the site of a public gallows where the outlaw Yankee Jim Robinson had been executed years earlier. From the very beginning, the land carried a weight of death and lingering energy, a presence that many claim has never left. Visitors to the Whaley House often speak of encounters that blur the line between history and the supernatural, where the past refuses to rest and the living feel its constant gaze. The most famous of these apparitions is Yankee Jim himself. Witnesses describe seeing a tall, shadowy figure pacing the hallways, moving with a deliberate, restless energy. Though the execution occurred long before the house was built, many believe his spirit remained tied to the land, forced to wander within the structure that now occupies the gallows' former ground. Guests often report a sensation of being watched, footsteps echoing to the polished wooden floors even when no one else is present, and cold drafts that sweep through rooms with no open windows. Some have even glimpsed a fleeting silhouette at the edge of their vision, only to find the space empty when turned to confront it. The Whaley House is alive with sensory phenomena that hint at lives once lived and abruptly ended. Perfume scents drift unexpectedly through the hallways, faint but persistent, as though a visitor from another century has merely passed by. Visitors have reported hearing a piano play soft, melancholy notes in the parlor, though no one has touched the keys. In other rooms, whispers emanate from staircases or corners, carrying fragments of conversation that cannot be traced to any living source. The effect is disorienting, creating the impression that the house is inhabited not only by ghosts but by memories that are desperate to be remembered. Children's laughter is another common occurrence. In rooms long sealed or empty, faint giggles and murmurs can be heard, sometimes echoing off the walls in impossible ways. Guests describe the sound as playful but tinged with an eerie quality, as if the joy of the children is frozen in time, yet slightly warped by the spectral plane. Some visitors report glimpses of small, shadowy figures darting across the floors or peeking around corners, vanishing before direct gaze can confirm their form. The juxtaposition of innocence and unease creates an experience that is both haunting and profoundly affecting. Hallways and staircases are particularly active areas. Guests often hear footsteps above or below their own level, pacing in rhythm or abruptly stopping as though sensing a presence. Whispered words sometimes rise from the staircase, echoing the hallway and seeming to come from no specific direction. Even seasoned staff admit to an uncanny awareness of being watched, noting that objects occasionally shift, doors open or close on their own, and the air grows inexplicably cold in certain sections of the house. The historical significance of the Whaley House seems inseparable from its spectral activity. The land's violent past, combined with the tragedies experienced by the Whaley family over the years, appears to have left a permanent imprint. Those who lived in the house, or spent extended time there, often reported a cumulative awareness, an almost tangible presence pressing against the living. It is a place where the echoes of justice, death, and domestic life intertwine, a museum not only of objects and architecture, but of lingering human emotion. Photography and recording equipment have captured anomalies within the house. Orbs of light, shadowy forms, and inexplicable movements have appeared in images, reinforcing claims of ongoing paranormal activity. Paranormal investigators describe the energy as dense, a mixture of sorrow, vigilance, and unresolved presence. It is a haunting that is consistent yet unpredictable, manifesting in subtle sounds or startling visual phenomena that defy logical explanation. Guests often describe a paradoxical feeling. The Whaley House is at once welcoming and oppressive. The beauty of its preserved Victorian architecture contrasts sharply with the weight of its spectral inhabitants. Each room, hallway, and staircase seems to hold a story, a fragment of life paused and replayed to the invisible eyes of the past. The experience of visiting the house is immersive, blending historical education with an unsettling sense that the house itself is alive with memory. Yankee gyms pacing, the perfume drifting, the piano music playing on its own, whispers from staircases, and children's laughter all serve as reminders that the past refuses to let go. The Whaley House is more than a building. It is a repository of emotion, tragedy, and memory that permeates every corner. Visitors leave with a heightened awareness that they have not simply toured a historic home. They have walked through a living narrative, one in which the dead linger, unseen but profoundly present. The Whaley House endures as a testament to the intertwining of history and haunting. It reminds all who enter that some spaces carry more than architecture. They carry the weight of events, the echo of lives, and the invisible presence of those who cannot or will not leave. Every creaking floorboard, every fleeting shadow, and every whisper through the hallways tells a story of a house that refuses to forget, where the past remains stubbornly alive, watching, pacing, and waiting for those who dare to walk its halls. Amelia Earhart, one of the most celebrated aviators in history, vanished over the Pacific Ocean on July 2, 1937, during her attempt to circumnavigate the globe. Her Lockheed Electra disappeared without a trace, sparking one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. Though she was never found, stories of ghostly sightings, strange lights, and eerie signs at sea have persisted for decades, turning her disappearance into a legend that straddles both history and the supernatural. Some claim that Earhart's spirit never left the skies or the remote islands that may have witnessed her final moments. The island of Nicomaroro in the Phoenix Islands is at the heart of much speculation. Researchers and explorers have suggested it may have been the site of Earhart's final landing or crash. Here, locals and occasional visitors recount strange phenomena that hint at the aviator's lingering presence. Lights have been reported moving across the island at night, small glowing orbs dancing along beaches or atop ridges where no campfires or torches are visible. Some say the lights appear in patterns reminiscent of aircraft navigation lights, blinking in sequences that suggest intention rather than random natural phenomena. Others claim the movements resemble someone walking along the shoreline, pacing back and forth as though waiting or searching for a way home. Whispers in the wind are another element of the legend. Sailors and island visitors have spoken of soft, almost melodic voices carried by night breezes, indistinct but unmistakably human. Some describe hearing a woman calling for help, reciting fragments of phrases that seem connected to flight or travel, or even the sound of a radio transmission that fades into static before it can be understood. The wind seems to carry not just sound, but a sense of presence, an ethereal signature that is difficult to explain, yet impossible for many to ignore. Strange disturbances at sea have also been linked to Earhart's spirit. Fishermen recount seeing lights bobbing on the horizon, moving in ways that defy navigation, and appearing in locations where no vessels exist. Some of these lights are described as steady glows, hovering just above the water, then vanishing suddenly. Others are fleeting streaks, reminiscent of a plane skimming the waves before disappearing. The pattern and timing of these sightings are inconsistent but persistent, leaving those who witness them with a lingering unease and a sense that they have glimpsed something unexplainable. Folklore surrounding Earhart often emphasizes her determination and resilience, traits that may have carried over into the spectral legends. Her reported spirit is never malevolent. It is said to be searching, waiting, perhaps guiding. Stories circulate of planes overhead at night that seem to respond to silent cues, as if another presence is observing from above or nearby. Some pilots flying near the islands have reported instruments flickering inexplicably, unusual turbulence, or a sudden coldness in the cockpit, followed by an inexplicable sense of calm, an intangible impression that someone is present but unseen. Even the island itself seems to resonate with her legend. Nikumaroro is remote, its beaches scattered with coral and driftwood, its forests thick and isolating. Explorers who have camped there report the sensation of being watched, of footprints appearing in sand where no one has walked, or of hearing faint thuds in the underbrush that vanish when approached. Some claim to see fleeting glimpses of a figure in a flight suit, moving silently between the palms and shadows, as though trying to navigate her way back to a world long gone. These reports are anecdotal, often debated, but they persist, forming a folklore that has lasted generations. The fascination with Amelia Earhart's ghostly presence is not just about fear, but about connection and the human desire to explain the unexplainable. Her life was marked by courage, daring, and a refusal to be confined, and in many ways, the spectral stories mirror these traits. Whether it is the lights on Nikumaroro, the calls on the wind, or the inexplicable movements at sea, the legend imbues her disappearance with a continued presence, a reminder that some mysteries are too compelling to end definitively. Over time, books, documentaries, and investigations have chronicled the tales, blending historical research with eyewitness accounts. Skeptics attribute the phenomena to natural phenomena, optical illusions, or folklore amplified over decades. Yet, the enduring stories persist, suggesting that the allure of Amelia Earhart's final flight transcends explanation. Ghostly speculation is not merely about fright. It is about honoring her memory, keeping alive the possibility that the world has not seen the last of her. For those who visit the islands, sail the surrounding waters, or study her life, there is a palpable sense of connection to something beyond the ordinary. A strange light flickers on the horizon. A whisper drifts through the palms. Footprints appear where no one should tread. These fleeting signs keep the story alive. Amelia Earhart's spirit, if it lingers at all, is one of persistence, of searching, and of courage unbound by the limits of life or death. Her disappearance, one of the most haunting mysteries of the 20th century, continues to inspire fascination and speculation. While the world may never know her final resting place, the legends of ghostly lights, voices in the wind, and unseen presence on remote Pacific islands ensure that Amelia Earhart's journey has never truly ended. Her story remains alive, not just in history books, but in the lingering, intangible echoes that make some nights on Nikumaroro feel as though the aviator herself is still watching, still searching, still flying across the endless sky. On the misty waters of Alabama's Tombigbee River, the tragic story of the steamboat Eliza battle has lingered for over a century, leaving an enduring mark on local folklore. In 1858, the vessel set sail carrying passengers and cargo along the winding river, its decks bustling with life and anticipation. But that journey would end in catastrophe. A sudden fire erupted aboard the steamboat, consuming the wooden vessel in flames before it could reach safety. Many aboard perished, their screams lost in the roar of the inferno and the lapping river waters. Since that fateful night, the Eliza battle has refused arrest, returning to the river in spectral form to haunt the imagination of those who navigate its banks. The tragedy of the Eliza battle was swift and merciless. The fire spread faster than passengers could escape, engulfing cabins and lifeboats. Smoke thickened the night air, obscuring the stars and turning the river into a corridor of horror. Survivors would later recount desperate attempts to save themselves, clutching onto floating debris or diving into the churning river as flames consumed the ship behind them. The death toll was significant, leaving families in mourning and communities forever scarred by the loss. Yet the story did not end with the sinking. In the years following, witnesses began reporting ghostly phenomena that suggested the souls of the departed had not moved on. On foggy nights, locals claimed to see the Eliza battle reappear along the river. Its timbers glow faintly with the light of a spectral fire, a haunting silhouette drifting over the water as though the vessel is still trying to reach its destination. The apparition is most often observed in the early hours before dawn, when mist rises from the river and visibility is low. Witnesses speak of the ship's outline flickering through the fog, the ghostly glow reflecting on the water, as if caught between the world of the living and the dead. The sight of the burning steamboat, eternally aflame yet unmoving, is both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder of disaster that refuses to fade from memory. Along the river banks, other spectral signs accompany the phantom vessel. Figures of passengers are said to appear on the shores, shadows that move and beckon, as if seeking rescue from their watery grave. Some witnesses report hearing faint cries for help, carried on the wind, distant yet unmistakably human. The sounds of splashing, hurried footsteps, or soft sobs echo among the trees lining the river, leaving a lingering sense that the tragedy is replaying itself for anyone willing, or unlucky enough, to witness it. Those who have encountered the phenomena often describe a mixture of sorrow and unease, an overwhelming awareness of lives lost and the desperation of that final, fiery night. The river itself seems to respond to the haunting. On nights when the Eliza battle is said to appear, the waters are unusually still, reflecting the ghostly glow of the ship with eerie clarity. Mist tends to settle heavily, curling and drifting as though alive, enveloping the landscape in an otherworldly haze. Some boaters and fishermen avoid the area altogether after sunset, wary of encountering the phantom vessel or its spectral passengers. Even those who claim not to believe in ghosts cannot deny the strange feeling that the river holds a memory, that it remembers the fire and the screams, and that it allows the past to seep back into the present. Stories of the Eliza battle have been passed down through generations, growing into an integral part of Alabama folklore. Children hear tales of the burning steamboat from an early age, while adults speak of the river with a mixture of respect and apprehension. Folklorists and historians have noted that while the ship itself is long gone, the cultural imprint it left behind is as vivid as any physical relic. The legend has been recounted in books, newspapers, and oral storytelling sessions, keeping the memory alive and infusing the riverbanks with a spectral energy that persists across time. Some encounters go beyond visual or auditory experiences. People walking along the river at night report sudden chills, a feeling of being watched, or an unexplained heaviness in the air, as if the weight of the disaster itself has seeped into the environment. Others claim to hear the creak of timbers, the faint roar of flames, or the desperate cries of passengers carried just above the surface of the river mist. In these moments, the line between past and present blurs, and the Eliza battle is no longer just a story. It becomes a living memory, replaying its tragedy in echoes and sensations that touch the living. The legend of the Eliza battle serves as both warning and remembrance. It reminds those who witness its ghostly presence of the dangers of the river, the vulnerability of life, and the way tragedy can leave an imprint that transcends mortality. The spectral ship, the glowing timbers, the cries from the banks, and the misty river all serve as a living testament to the lives lost. A haunting presence that refuses to be forgotten. Even today, the river remains a place of mystery and reflection. On foggy nights, the brave or curious may glimpse the faintly glowing outline of the Eliza battle, hear a desperate cry carried on the wind, or feel a chill as if the river itself is aware of the centuries-old tragedy. It is a haunting that transcends time, a story of fire, water, and lingering spirits, where the past rises again and again, carried by the mist, the night, and the endless flow of the Tombigbee. The Eliza battle continues to drift between history and legend, a ghostly reminder that some tragedies, and the souls tied to them, never truly leave. In 1887, the small town of Rahway, New Jersey, was shaken by the discovery of a young woman's lifeless body. She was found near the outskirts of town, her identity a mystery. Her life ended in a way that offered no answers. Newspapers at the time recorded the tragedy with grim brevity. A young woman, unnamed, murdered, and left to be buried without recognition. Over the years, she became known simply as the Rahway Jane Doe, a name that carries both anonymity and an enduring, sorrowful presence. Though her body rests in Rahway Cemetery, locals and visitors have long claimed that her spirit refuses to remain buried, haunting the site where she was interred and appearing each year as though drawn back to the place of her death. The Rahway Cemetery, with its rows of weathered stones and ancient oaks, seems ordinary in daylight, yet holds an aura of unease for those who know the story. At night, the shadows stretch long and cold winds weave through the gravestones, carrying whispers that seem just beyond hearing. Witnesses report glimpsing a pale figure drifting silently among the stones, dressed in old-fashioned clothing reminiscent of the late 19th century. Some say her presence is fleeting, a glimmer in the corner of the eye, while others insist she pauses near her gravesite, as if checking that her final resting place remains undisturbed. Those who encounter her often describe an overwhelming sense of sadness, an energy that feels tied to injustice and unresolved fate. There is no anger in the apparition, no malevolence, only the profound sorrow of life ended too soon and a mystery that never found resolution. Some visitors feel a chill brush against their shoulders or hear soft, mournful sighs as they pass near her stone. Others describe hearing faint footsteps trailing theirs, light and deliberate, vanishing when they look back, leaving behind only the echo of the encounter. Local lore suggests that the Rahway Jane Doe appears most frequently around the anniversary of her death, as if the memory of her final day pulls her back into the world of the living. On these nights, witnesses report seeing the figure stand among the headstones, her posture solemn, her movements slow and deliberate. Some claim she lifted her head to look toward the road where she was found, as if searching for something or someone that was lost to her forever. The spectral image is often accompanied by a sense of stillness, a hush that seems to mute the natural sounds of the cemetery, leaving only the presence of the young woman suspended in the night air. There are accounts of Jane Doe manifesting in more subtle ways as well. Visitors have reported sudden drops in temperature near her grave, shadows shifting in unnatural ways, and even a faint scent of flowers that do not exist in the area. Cameras and recording devices occasionally capture unexplained movements or glowing forms that cannot be explained by light or reflections. Even skeptics admit that there is something unsettling about the spot, a weight in the air that suggests the past has not fully released its hold on this lost life. The anonymity of the Rahway Jane Doe adds to her haunting. Without a name, she exists in a liminal space between history and legend, between remembrance and neglect. Her lack of identity allows the tragedy to remain open-ended, compelling those who witness her presence to wonder about who she was, what her life might have been, and why she was left to die alone. Some claim that seeing her is a reminder of injustice, a spectral plea for recognition, and a call to remember those whose stories have been silenced. Over the years, the legend has woven itself into local culture. Teenagers dare each other to visit her grave at night. Photographers attempt to capture evidence of her apparition, and ghost hunters make pilgrimages to the Rahway Cemetery seeking proof of her presence. Each encounter adds a layer to the story, and though explanations vary, psychological suggestion, shadows, natural phenomena, The experiences themselves are consistent enough to suggest that something lingers. The pale figure, the soft footsteps, the heavy sorrow, they persist across generations, defying simple rationalization. Some accounts even describe interactions that feel almost personal. People standing near her grave have felt an inexplicable pressure, as if the spirit is acknowledging their presence, or a brush of cold air that seems to mimic a touch. Whispers are sometimes heard in languages long gone, or words too faint to interpret, leaving witnesses with an impression that the Jane Doe is attempting communication, to make her story heard even after more than a century of silence. Despite the passage of time, Rahway Jane Doe remains tied to her resting place, her spirit drawn back year after year, night after night, to the cemetery that holds her body. The combination of mystery, tragedy, and the unfulfilled need for remembrance creates a haunting that is as poignant as it is eerie. Those who visit often leave with a mixture of sadness and awe, feeling as though they have glimpsed a life lost to history and a soul that has not yet found peace. The Rahway Jane Doe is more than a ghost story. She is a testament to lives erased by circumstance, a lingering echo of tragedy that insists on being remembered. In the darkness of Rahway's cemetery, on nights when the mist rises and the world is quiet, her pale figure can appear. Suspended between the living and the dead, she floats near her gravesite, a sorrowful sentinel of her own untold story, silently reminding all who encounter her that some mysteries do not fade, and some spirits refuse to be forgotten. In the heart of Louisiana, the Myrtles Plantation stands as both a historic site and a place of enduring mystery. Built in 1796, the house is said to be constructed over an ancient Native American burial ground, a detail that some believe contributes to its lingering supernatural energy. Over the centuries, the plantation has accumulated stories of tragedy, unrest, and unexplained phenomena, making it one of the most famously haunted locations in the United States. Visitors and locals alike report experiences that cannot be easily explained, from ghostly apparitions to eerie sounds that echo through the halls, creating an atmosphere thick with history and lingering spirits. The plantation is perhaps most famous for Chloe, a slave girl who allegedly suffered under harsh conditions. Legends describe Chloe as a figure wrapped in mystery and tragedy. Some say she wore a green turban to cover her scars, the mark of a violent punishment she received. After her death, her spirit is believed to have remained at the plantation, caught in photographs by unsuspecting visitors, or glimpsed in hallways and rooms where no one should be. Chloe's presence is said to be both mischievous and mournful, sometimes playful, other times a silent witness to the ongoing life of the house she never left. Footsteps are a frequent phenomenon reported in the plantation house. Visitors often describe hearing soft, deliberate steps following them along hallways, ascending staircases, or pacing rooms where no one else is present. Sometimes the sound is rapid, as if in a hurry, other times slow and deliberate, echoing in a way that seems to communicate a presence watching over or warning those who walk the halls. Even seasoned paranormal investigators acknowledge a sense of awareness, as if the house itself is observing every movement, every sound. Mirrors within the plantation are particularly active. Guests and staff have reported seeing figures that vanish when approached, reflections that appear distorted, or even the fleeting image of a child or woman standing behind them. Some believe these mirrors act as portals, thin windows through which the past occasionally leaks into the present. Others suggest the reflections may hold residual energy, echoing the lives of those who suffered and died at Myrtles, unable to move beyond the boundaries of their mortal experience. Child spirits are also part of the plantation's chilling lore. Visitors report hearing laughter in empty rooms, the sound of tiny feet running across polished floors, or toys moving inexplicably. Some claim to see small shadows darting across doorways or peeking from behind furniture. These manifestations are sometimes accompanied by sudden drops in temperature or an inexplicable heaviness in the air, a subtle but undeniable reminder that the house is not simply a static structure, but a vessel for lingering life, even after death. Cold spots appear throughout the Myrtles plantation, unlinked to windows or drafts. These sudden chills can startle guests walking through hallways or entering rooms, often localized to areas where tragedies occurred. Some feel as if an unseen hand brushes against their shoulder or their arm, and while the sensation is fleeting, it leaves a deep impression. Investigators describe these phenomena as highly concentrated paranormal energy, and many agree that the intensity seems strongest near the rooms associated with Chloe and other historical figures whose lives ended abruptly or violently. Local lore reinforces the plantation's eerie reputation. Residents and longtime guides speak of experiencing inexplicable sensations, objects moving without cause, and the uncanny feeling of being watched. Chloe's figure, whether caught in photographs or a glimpse in fleeting moments, remains the most consistent and unsettling presence. Visitors often leave the house with stories of her pale form lingering in the corner of a room, or of a green turbaned figure standing silently behind them in mirrors. These experiences, repeated over decades, have solidified the Myrtles Plantation's reputation as a site where history and the supernatural intertwine. The plantation's grounds, including its gardens, oak trees, and outbuildings, are not immune to ghostly activity. People report hearing whispers carried on the wind, voices calling names long forgotten, and shadows moving between trees and along the paths at night. Some suggest that the energy of the land itself, combined with the weight of the tragedies that occur within the house, creates an environment where spirits are anchored, unable or unwilling to leave. Even those who do not believe in the supernatural cannot ignore the sensation of unease that descends after dark, a feeling that the plantation remembers, and that is attended to every step taken on its soil. Photographers and paranormal investigators continue to document the activity, with many images revealing faint, unexplained forms or distortions suggestive of a presence beyond the living. Objects sometimes appear to shift between rooms, doors open or close without cause, and whispers occasionally register on recording equipment, even when investigators report hearing nothing. These signs reinforce the belief that the Myrtles Plantation is more than a historic house. It is a repository of lingering human emotion, a place where the line between the living and the dead is blurred. The Myrtles Plantation remains a destination not just for history enthusiasts, but for those drawn to the unexplained. The combination of historical tragedy, local legend, and repeated paranormal experiences ensures that Chloe and the other spirits are remembered. Guests walk its halls, see the flicker of a figure in a mirror, hear laughter in empty rooms, and feel the inexplicable chill of a presence that has endured through centuries. The house tells its story not just through bricks and wood, but through lingering life, whispers, and shadows that refuse to fade. Today, the Myrtles Plantation stands as a haunting reminder of the past, a place where history and folklore converge. It is a site of beauty and sorrow, where Chloe's spirit and the echoes of other lost souls continue to linger. Each creaking floorboard, each cold spot, and each shadow in the mirror serves as proof that some presences do not leave quietly. Visitors are left with the undeniable sense that the plantation is alive, attentive, and watching, an enduring testament to the lives, stories, and spirits that continue to reside within its walls. Perched on a hill in Estes Park, Colorado, the Stanley Hotel has earned its reputation as one of the most haunted hotels in America. Built in 1909 by F.O. Stanley, the grand structure overlooks the Rocky Mountains with stately elegance, but beneath its opulent exterior lies a persistent whisper of the paranormal. Guests, staff, and paranormal investigators alike report experiences that range from subtle sensations to outright encounters, making the hotel an enduring magnet for those drawn to the unexplained. Its legacy of hauntings is so compelling that it famously inspired Stephen King's The Shining, a tale that echoes the energy and stories that continue to linger within its walls. The hotel's rooms are a frequent source of eerie activity. Guests staying overnight have recounted hearing voices when no one else is present, whispers in hallways, and the sound of objects being moved despite locked doors and empty suites. Items often appear shifted from their original places, small personal belongings inexplicably relocated, as if handled by unseen hands. Travelers have described doors opening and closing on their own, drawers sliding slightly ajar, and lights flickering with no electrical explanation. Even seasoned staff acknowledge that certain rooms carry a heavier energy, a sense of watchfulness that cannot be rationalized away. The piano is another conduit for the hotel's paranormal activity. In the lounge, in some private rooms, the sound of piano keys has been reported when no one is present. The music ranges from soft, haunting melodies to more forceful, deliberate notes, often leaving witnesses startled and uncertain whether to believe their ears. Sometimes the notes appear random, as if the piano itself has a mind of its own, while other times they suggest a message, a deliberate communication through melody. Musicians who attempt to play in these spaces often report that the air feels thicker, almost alive, as though the walls themselves are participating in the haunting. Shadows and figures are common sightings within the hotel. Guests have described fleeting glimpses of figures moving across hallways, disappearing when approached. Some see silhouettes in doorways, while others notice shadows that seem to mirror their own movements or appear where no one should be. Staff members occasionally report seeing people in uniforms from decades past, walking with purpose as though carrying out duties from another era. These apparitions are rarely threatening. Instead, they convey the impression of a hotel still inhabited by echoes of its past. The presence of children is another recurring theme. Laughter and giggles have been reported in empty hallways and abandoned suites, often echoing from nowhere in particular. Sometimes the sound is joyful, light, and playful. Other times is plaintive, carrying a note of sorrow. Guests staying late at night have felt small hands brush against theirs or caught glimpses of fleeting figures that vanish when looked at directly. The hotel's age and history suggest that the energy of past families and their lives may still linger, interacting with the living in subtle and sometimes startling ways. Staff and long-term employees often report sensations of being watched, sudden drops in temperature, and feelings of unease in otherwise empty areas. Even the grand lobby, bathed in warm light during the day, can feel charged with an almost tangible energy at night. Some describe the sensation as a presence moving through the room, passing unseen yet undeniably there. Others have felt brushes of air on their skin, or heard faint whispers in languages or phrases they do not recognize. These experiences reinforce the sense that the hotel is more than a building. It is a vessel for memories, for lives once lived, and for lingering spirits unwilling to leave. Visitors often recount experiences that defy explanation. Personal items have been found moved or missing entirely, only to reappear later in unusual places. Lights flicker in patterns that mimic communication, and in some rooms, mirrors seem to reflect more than just the present occupants. Cameras and recording devices occasionally capture anomalies, glows, mists, or shadowy figures, reinforcing the stories told by those who experienced the hauntings firsthand. Even those skeptical of the supernatural admit that there is something unusual, the sensation of being observed and of history pressing quietly yet insistently against the living. The Stanley Hotel's notoriety has grown over the decades, drawing travelers, ghost hunters, and storytellers from around the world. It appears on nearly every list of haunted hotels, and its reputation is as enduring as its architectural elegance. Visitors often report that the combination of historical weight, repeated accounts of paranormal activity, and the sheer atmosphere of the mountain setting creates an environment unlike any other, one where the past seems not just remembered but actively present. Whether it is the sound of a piano playing in an empty room, a shadow drifting across a hallway, the laughter of children in the dead of night, or the feeling of being watched from unseen corners, the Stanley Hotel continues to captivate and unnerve. Its ghosts are not violent, but they are persistent, leaving subtle reminders that the lives and stories of the past are never truly gone. The hotel's history, combined with countless eyewitness accounts, ensures that the Stanley remains a place where the veil between the living and the dead is thin, where every creaking floorboard, flickering light, and whispered sound may be more than coincidence. In Estes Park, Colorado, the Stanley Hotel is more than a grand building with scenic mountain views. It is a living repository of memory, a stage where the past continues to play itself out. For those who walk its halls, sleep in its rooms, or linger in its corridors at night, there is a palpable sense that they share the space not only with other guests, but with those who have never truly left. The stories, the shadows, and the echoes of laughter ensure that the Stanley Hotel is, and will remain, one of the most haunted and unforgettable sights in America. In the remote deserts of northeastern Utah lies Skinwalker Ranch, a property shrouded in mystery, fear, and the unexplained. For decades, This stretch of land has been the epicenter of reports that seem to defy logic, blending modern phenomena with the ancient folklore of the Navajo and Ute peoples. Locals speak of the ranch with caution, often warning outsiders of its strange reputation. UFOs hovering silently over the terrain, lights appearing and vanishing in impossible ways, and creatures that seem to shift their form before the eyes of those brave enough or unlucky enough to witness them. Skinwalker Ranch has become synonymous with the unknown, a place where the line between science, legend, and terror blurs. The ranch's modern history of odd events began in earnest in the 1990s, though Native American traditions had long warned of skinwalkers, beings capable of taking human or animal forms, spirits, or witches of terrible power. According to these stories, skinwalkers could mimic voices, appear as wolves, coyotes, or even humans, and move with unnatural speed or strength. Those who encountered them often felt an overwhelming sense of dread, an awareness that they were being observed by a presence unlike anything in the natural world. On the ranch, these legends seemed to manifest with alarming consistency. Residents of the property reported a variety of unsettling phenomena. Lights of all shapes and colors appeared in the sky, hovering silently or darting across the horizon at speeds impossible for conventional aircraft. Witnesses described orbs glowing bright red, green, or blue, shifting erratically before disappearing entirely. At night, animals on the ranch behaved oddly. Horses trembled without cause, cattle panicked for no visible reason, and pets seemed to react to invisible stimuli, their heads tracking things unseen. Dogs barked at empty spaces, and livestock sometimes disappeared for hours, only to be found miles from their usual pens. Human encounters were perhaps the most chilling. People claimed to hear voices perfectly imitating loved ones, often calling from dark corners or across the property. These voices were eerily convincing, but when approached, there was no one there. Sometimes the ranch's residents would hear footsteps on rooftops or in hallways, shadows moving against the fences, and the unmistakable feeling of being stalked. A pervasive sense of being watched was common, leaving people on edge even in broad daylight. Electronics often failed in inexplicable ways. Cameras stopped working, vehicles would stall, and radios emitted strange static that seemed to carry distorted voices. The ranch also became notorious for incidents of missing time. Residents recount nights where hours, or even entire segments of time, vanished from memory. People would awaken to find objects displaced, doors left open, or evidence that events had occurred without recollection. These lapses were often accompanied by feelings of disorientation, nausea, and fear, suggesting that whatever activity was taking place on the ranch had a profound effect on human perception and consciousness. Perhaps the most terrifying reports involved creatures that defy biology. Witnesses described wolf-like beings of enormous size, with glowing red eyes, capable of moving faster than any known animal. Some claimed to have seen entities shifting from human shape to animal form, or figures that could appear solid one moment and vanish the next. The scale of these creatures, combined with their uncanny intelligence, created a pervasive sense that the ranch was home to forces entirely beyond human understanding. Scientific and investigative attempts have been made to document the phenomena. UFO researchers, paranormal investigators, and skeptics alike have spent nights on the property, attempting to capture evidence. Cameras, motion sensors, and audio equipment often malfunction, and while some recordings reveal unexplained lights or movements, nothing has definitively explained the full scope of activity. Some researchers suggest that the ranch exists at a nexus of unusual energy, a place where natural laws seem bent, and where ancient folklore and modern mystery intersect. Local lore intertwines with modern accounts, reinforcing the ranch's reputation as a site of supernatural significance. The concept of the skinwalker originates from centuries-old Navajo beliefs, describing witches who could assume the forms of animals to harm or manipulate people. Many researchers see a connection between these tales and the reports from the ranch. Creatures capable of mimicking voices, attacking livestock, or shifting forms with impossible speed and intelligence. Whether the stories are literal, psychological, or a combination of both, the cultural weight of the legend adds a layer of fear and fascination that amplifies every strange occurrence. The isolation of the property only intensifies the terror. Miles from the nearest town, Surrounded by desert and sagebrush, the ranch is a world apart. Visitors often describe a palpable sense of tension, as though the land itself is alive and aware of intruders. Nights are particularly unnerving, when the silence is punctuated by unidentifiable sounds, moving lights, and fleeting shadows that vanish as soon as they are noticed. Every breeze, every rustle of a tree, can feel like a sign that something unseen is observing, studying, and perhaps even interacting with the humans who dare to enter. Skinwalker Ranch remains a place where modern mystery meets ancient legend. UFOs streak across the sky. Lights hover in impossible patterns. Animals react to unseen presences, and people experience missing time and unexplainable fear. Shadowy, shape-shifting creatures stalk the land, while the whispers of native folklore echo through every report. It is a location that defies conventional understanding, a living intersection of history, myth, and the unexplainable. To step onto Skinwalker Ranch is to enter a realm where reality bends, where time and perception can be unreliable, and where the stories of old continue to manifest in new and terrifying ways. Whether the phenomena are supernatural, extraterrestrial, or simply the product of a human mind pushed to its limits, the ranch remains one of the most compelling and unsettling locations in the United States. Here, the unknown does not merely exist. It watches, it listens, and it waits, leaving those who encounter it with memories that cannot be fully understood and fears that cannot easily be dismissed. Along the coasts and historic hotels of the United States, one name recurs in whispers and eyewitness accounts: Kate. Among the most famous is Kate Morgan of the Hotel Del Coronado in California, a young woman who died under mysterious circumstances in 1892. Yet the stories of Kate are not limited to one place or one time. They have become a pattern, a legend of spirits that appear in hotels, seaside resorts, and grand old buildings, always leaving the living with a sense of the uncanny, a brush with the unseen. These apparitions are often subtle, delicate, and hauntingly persistent, creating a connection across decades, continents, and the edges of human perception. At the Hotel Del Coronado, Kate Morgan is said to linger in room 302, where she was last seen alive. Guests report inexplicable chills, sudden drops in temperature, and the faint scent of floral perfume that lingers in the hallway. Doors open and close on their own, often softly, as if someone is moving through corridors unseen. Some visitors have heard footsteps pacing outside their rooms or approaching down the hall, yet when they look, the floor is empty, the echo fading into silence. Mirrors in a room sometimes reflect more than the living, shapes, shadows, or even the fleeting image of a woman in a period dress, as if caught between worlds. It is not only Morgan who is remembered in these haunted spaces. Across the country, numerous hotels and resorts claim a presence named Kate or a spirit of similar character. She appears most often near windows, where the wind and rain might play tricks on the eye, or mirrors, where reflections seem distorted or alive. On stormy nights, the phenomenon intensifies. Guests have reported faint music, the tinkling of a piano in empty rooms, or the delicate sound of singing that drifts through the hallways. It is always soft, almost ethereal, impossible to trace to any physical source, yet undeniably present. Witnesses often describe her appearance as transient and ghostly, a shadow at the edge of vision, a pale figure standing just beyond the doorway, or a reflection that vanishes when directly observed. Some feel a presence near them when reading in a hotel lounge or sitting by the window, as if she watches silently, waiting or perhaps replaying memories of her own life. Despite the sorrow that seems to cling to these Kate apparitions, they are rarely violent. Instead, they are watchers, echoes of story untold, and a presence that insists on recognition. Doors and furniture also play a role in these hauntings. Guests report doors that swing open with no wind, drawers that slide slightly ajar, and items gently displaced. Some say the movements are purposeful, as if the spirit is trying to guide or communicate with the living. Others interpret these small disturbances as echoes of the past, residual energy replaying actions long performed in life. When combined with faint music, perfumes, and the soft sensation of being watched, these phenomena create an immersive experience that feels alive intimate, and often deeply unsettling. Hotels and resorts are uniquely susceptible to these types of hauntings. They are places where lives intersect temporarily, where strangers meet, and where human experiences accumulate over years. A spirit like Kate, tethered by unresolved tragedy or sudden death, finds the setting ideal. The echo of footsteps, the shifting of objects, the movement of shadows, all become part of a tableau that bridges the living and the dead. Guests often leave with stories of sudden chills, whispering voices, or the sense of being accompanied by someone unseen, a memory that will linger long after they depart. The legends also suggest that storms and weather play a role in Kate's manifestations. Many sightings occur during approaching storms, when the wind rattles windows and rain hammers the roof. Guests report that on such nights, the music is louder, footsteps more pronounced, and shadows more distinct. Some feel as though she appears to offer a warning, a presence tied not only to the location but to the forces of nature itself. Mirrors and windows, reflecting the storm outside, become focal points where a form is glimpsed, as if she uses these surfaces as portals to intersect with the living world. Photography and paranormal investigation have occasionally captured glimpses of her figure. Faint outlines in mirrors, shadows that seem to resemble a woman in period dress, and distortions in photographs all lend credence to the stories. Visitors often describe feeling her near them before seeing anything tangible, a present sense as much as observed. Perfume scents, faint music, and sudden drops in temperature reinforce the subtlety of her haunting, making her a ghost whose effect is more psychological and atmospheric than aggressive. Across hotels, resorts, and seaside inns, Kate's story persists. Whether she is a manifestation of grief, unresolved tragedy, or something else entirely, her appearances leave lasting impressions. Witnesses consistently describe the same elements: windows, mirrors, faint music, perfume, and sensation of being watched. It is a haunting that is quiet yet insistent, sorrowful yet delicate, personal yet universal. The legend of Kate, Morgan, and others continues to draw visitors, investigators, and storytellers, all eager to glimpse a presence that seems to exist on the edges of memory and reality. Kate's ghost is more than a figure in a historic hotel. She is a reminder of lives interrupted, of mysteries left unsolved, and of the way the past persists in the spaces we inhabit. Whether seen as a warning, a memory, or a lingering soul, she remains a spectral companion to travelers and a quiet witness to history. Guests who experience her presence leave with stories, chills, and the haunting certainty that some spirits, like Kate, never truly depart. Off the shores of Boston, in the cold waters of the harbor, lies George's Island, home to Fort Warren, a massive granite fortress with a storied past. Built in the 1830s and used extensively during the Civil War, Fort Warren served as a military prison, housing Confederate officers and prisoners of war. The island's strategic location made it nearly inescapable, but also became a place where desperation, sorrow, and death lingered long after the fort's cannons fell silent. Today, Fort Warren is a historical site, attracting tourists and history enthusiasts, yet many who visit report an unsettling presence, a feeling that the past has never truly departed. The fort's dark history began long before it became a prison. Constructed with thick granite walls and heavy gates, it was designed to withstand attack, and it did so in ways few could have anticipated. During the Civil War, Confederate prisoners were confined within its cold, echoing cell blocks. Disease, harsh weather, and the isolation of island life claimed the lives of several prisoners. Some succumbed quietly, while others died from despair and the brutal conditions of imprisonment. These deaths, and the sense of confinement felt by those who endured them, left a lingering imprint that many claim is still perceptible today. Visitors to Fort Warren often report hearing ghostly knocks against the stone walls or the distant clanging of heavy doors. These sounds frequently echo in places where no one is present, carrying through empty corridors and along the ramparts. At times, the knocks seem purposeful, deliberate, as if someone or something is attempting to communicate. Guests walking the fort's labyrinthine passages have described hearing faint cries, voices calling out in desperation, and the moans of men trapped in the small cells long ago. The sounds are intermittent, sometimes growing louder when the wind shifts or the sun dips behind the horizon, lending a surreal, almost theatrical quality to the experience. Shadows are a common phenomenon at Fort Warren. Tourists have reported seeing figures pacing along the cell block corridors or standing at the windows, silhouetted against the dim light of dusk. These forms are rarely detailed. They appear as dark shapes, human in outline but flickering, insubstantial, as if the material world cannot fully contain them. Many of these sightings occur near areas that once held the prisoners, suggesting that the spirits are connected to the fort's history, tied to the anguish and isolation endured within the granite walls. The fort's ramparts are also a place of persistent sightings. At dusk, some visitors have described spectral figures walking the parapets, often in uniforms resembling those worn during the Civil War. These figures are sometimes seen staring out toward the harbor, as if gazing at a world they can no longer touch. Others appear to march slowly along the stone walkways, their steps silent yet visually distinct. The combination of the fort's austere architecture, the fading light of day, and these spectral appearances creates a scene that is at once beautiful and haunting, a living tableau of history intertwined with the supernatural. Even the island itself seems charged with subtle energy. A coldness often descends upon areas of the fort where history was most brutal, particularly near the old cells and along the pathways connecting them. Visitors frequently report sudden chills, a feeling of being watched, or a sense that someone just passed by when no one is present. Photographers and paranormal investigators have occasionally captured strange light anomalies, faint mist-like forms, and shadows that seem to move independently of any physical source, further cementing Fort Warren's reputation as a site of lingering presences. The stories are not limited to individual sensations. Groups of visitors have heard multiple knocks, cries, or footsteps simultaneously, as though an entire cell block is replaying moments from the past. Some have reported objects shifting slightly, a door handle turning, a window latch moving, or papers fluttering as if moved by an unseen hand. These experiences reinforce the notion that the spirits of the prisoners remain attentive, not necessarily malicious, but persistently present. The fort itself seems to remember the lives once confined within its walls, replaying moments of sorrow and solitude for those who are sensitive to its energy. Historical records and folklore intersect at Fort Warren. The documented deaths of prisoners, combined with anecdotal reports from visitors and guides, create a compelling tapestry of haunted history. Confederate officers who died here were buried quietly, sometimes within the fort's grounds, leaving behind both physical and spiritual traces. The stone walls, the narrow corridors, and the high ramparts, all architectural features designed for defense and control, now serve as conduits for the stories of the past, echoing across decades to those who walk the grounds today. Walking through Fort Warren today is to step into a space where history is alive, not merely remembered. The echoes of the past, the knocks, the cries, the fleeting shadows, create a tangible sense that the fort is not entirely empty. Visitors feel the weight of the lives lived and lost here, and for some, the experience is chilling, thrilling, and unforgettable. Even under bright sunlight, the knowledge of what occurred within the granite walls add a layer of solemnity and unease that cannot be ignored. Fort Warren in Boston Harbor is more than a historic fortress. It is a place where time and memory converge, where the spirits of those who suffered and died continue to manifest in subtle, undeniable ways. Whether through footsteps, shadows, spectral figures on the ramparts, or cries carried by the wind, the fort's haunted presence endures. Visitors leave with stories of their own, memories of an island that holds its past as tightly as it holds the waters of the harbor, a chilling reminder that some places never truly release the echoes of history. And there you have it, 25 of the eeriest ghost sightings in American history. Haunted houses, spectral figures, phantom footsteps, cries in the dark, and creatures that defy logic. What makes a ghost story endure? History, tragedy, and the persistent belief that something unseen still walks among us. If one of these hauntings gave you chills, or made you question what's just beyond our senses, leave a comment below. Which one unsettles you the most? If you visited any of these places, share your story. And if you enjoyed this journey into the haunted and strange, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, keep your lights on, your windows locked, and remember, when the wind whispers through old halls, it might just be someone calling from another time.